Hi, and welcome to Thursday with a Friend. My name is Lawrence, and today my special, special, special guest, David Speck, also known as Toy Optics, who I'll be 100% honest, I think a lot of people don't realize that you have a whole Instagram when they see you on a toy kind of mood. Um, I don't think you guys say that too much. Obviously, like Tony's Figs is right there, and now that I'm seeing last night when I tuned in, I saw Bobby has Geeks Have a Game now
Hmm.
kind of branded underneath it. So I don't think a lot of people realize that you're Toy Optics. So anyway, thank you for joining me. And how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you this evening?
I'm great. It is cold as it's cold as hail. I just found this out. It's cold as hail, not cold as hell, which makes more sense.
It does. Doesn't sound as good, but it makes more
No,
sense.
it doesn't. But and I looked in because I saw some Instagrammer or something like posted. I forget, and I was like, "Shut up!" And I'm looking at it. I'm like, "Holy crap! It actually makes sense." Uh, so anyway, how are you doing? And how are you out there in LA right now?
I'm good. So I live down closer to LAX, Marina Del Rey, sort of closer to the water. So
Okay.
I'm not in the danger zone. Obviously, we get the fallout with the crappy air and the ash, but it seems to be clearing up. Um, so it's nice. I have the windows open right now. It's just been a first all week. We shut them and turn the air back on, which I hate, but it's probably about 50-ish degrees, and we get that nice breeze off the water. Um, but
Does
yeah,
it does it seem strange that's kind of like going on about your business while all this is happening?
I mean, it's not the first time I've been here and we've had
Yeah.
fires, but this is definitely A, the most destructive, and B, the closest that they've ever come to, I guess, come towards me in a sense. So
Yeah.
like the evacuation line nearest me was Santa Monica. And I used to live in Santa Monica almost 20 years ago. And I lived right on Santa Monica Boulevard and 12th Street. So I was 1.2 miles from the beach. I was walking distance from the pier and everything that you see in the movies, um,
Oh,
and
skateboarding.
skateboarding. And just north of that, just a few blocks north of that, is where the cutoff for the evacuation line was. Um, so that was kind of scary. I knew in my practical mind that the flames were never going to come another 6 miles south towards us. It's too urban. There isn't as much greenery and
Yeah.
brush. Now, you know, things have happened and it could go building to building to building, and who knows what the hell.
But you're only like 6 miles from.
Only 6 miles. And so
Wow.
the
That's
the
close.
Tuesday, when all the fires happened, taking my kids to school Wednesday, because they're up closer to Santa Monica. That was kind of trippy because I have to go east on an access freeway to go north on the 405. So you go east where the sun is coming up, and I've seen it before, but again, with everything being closer, you had this red devil sun in the sky, that just orange, and this red sun that I think I might have put a picture on my personal Instagram. And then as you went north, obviously, because I'm closer to the water, I can see all the smoke billowing out over across the coastline down towards me.
Oof.
And then I got off at my exit and had to go east again. And I'm looking at Century City, where the Nakatomi building from Die Hard. So there's skyscrapers there,
Yeah.
and I hate to say it, but it was kind of beautiful. There was just this dark, smoky background with these skyscrapers, and there was this pocket of pure daylight coming through from the north. Just kind of, and this is me being a photography dork,
Yeah.
but it was sort of like three-quarter backlighting the building. So you just had this pure white daylight just sort of edging out these skyscrapers against this dark, smoky background. And it was freaky, but it was also kind of pretty. but
Yeah.
there was like, I had a numb sensation that morning. It was just sort of like, I'm going about my business, doing the things that I have to do, but none of this feels right. There's a surrealness to it.
Yeah, and like I mean, again, I think many of us remember 9/11. I got laid off the Friday, and I watched all of 9/11 happen, like sitting at my house. And yeah, you're just like people are going about their business, but it's like because there's nothing you can do.
No, on
I'm not a
9/11.
firefighter. I can't go help.
No, there's
So
not. I mean, here there's things that we can do to help, and I know a lot of people personally who lost their homes, and my wife's aunt and uncle lost a home, and so there's a million and 10 GoFundMe's for those people individually, and then of course there's the relief funds and the disaster funds and donations, and so there's things that can be done to help, and so my
yeah,
wife and I are looking into other things that we can do to sort of, this is our city. My wife grew up here. This is her city, and this has been my city for 23 years. So like, you know, I said it on the show last week on a Toy Kind of Mood, is like, it was heartbreaking, and it
we don't
still is heartbreaking, but
we don't talk about other shows on this show.
show that shall not be named.
No, sorry that everyone started on such a somber note, but I mean, it is, I mean, you're there, and again, it's one thing to, again, I think it's one thing to see it on TV and to hear about it, and obviously, again, I think anytime that you see, and you work with a lot of them, but when you see celebrities talking about them, and everyone rolls their eyes like, I don't care, you have the money, and I'm not saying they all do, but there's the people that don't have the money, and again, yeah, they try and focus on it, but everything always goes to stars. So I think you do have a lot of people that start to roll their eyes and be like, oh God, here we go again, you need more money, but it's really the other people, and to see it on TV is one thing, but to actually be there, I can only imagine.
Yeah,
It's one
and
thing to
I
see the light.
haven't tried to go up near any of it because most of it's still blocked off. But I mean, you just see those photos, and obviously, I used to live near, when I first moved out to LA. I was in Glendale, so I was closer to Altadena, and I'd go there from time to time. And it's a very suburban kind of non-LA part of LA, kind of butted up against the foothills, and it's just it kind of feels East Coast.
Yeah,
And so to hear that that's just gone is like mind blowing. And then the Palisades, again, not super familiar with it, but being on that side, closer to my side of town, and my wife's aunt and uncle having their house there, they, the good thing is that they retired and they moved out of that house a few years ago and started renting it out to help out with their retirement. But it's a very
yeah,
sentimental place, so we hadn't gone in a while, but we used to go all the time. And again, it's another neighborhood. It's a cute neighborhood, very nice homes. It's an affluent neighborhood, but there's parts to it, there's their area where like a lot more normal people lived, and then as you start getting closer to the water, that's when you start getting, the big celebrity houses, or the newer construction or whatever. But to me, it doesn't matter. Like, somebody's home is somebody's home,
yeah,
and I don't care if it's their 20th home. A lot of those people that have other homes, this was still their primary residence, so they
yeah.
still lost so much in terms of personal belongings and normality, and it just sucks either way
I
around. I
mean,
don't care if you're a celebrity or just a blue collar.
I mean, like imagine losing your home, and in your basement you have your childhood USS flag that you got for Christmas with 8 shipwrecks. That would be absolutely awful. That one's just for Ed. Anyway, I promise we're gonna get happier. But let's say hi to the chat really quick before we talk any more about this. So we have Christoph Scuba here. We have Woody 222, Gun Bunny
Woody,
Customs,
Bunny,
Beardy McPeterson. We have a
Sabir,
Sabir, Plastic Fantastic, GI
Plastic
Bro,
Yo.
who has the best guns in the business. Menhoza has joined us. David Speck, who's also on screen. Motu Guru. I love seeing the Motu guy here. Probably likes other stuff, but it's good that people are tuning in because they have an appreciation or they like talking. They like hearing the host who doesn't do much Motu, just chat. Matthew Matt's in here. Everyone be sure to get the Savage Crucibles. Eric of Melonborn tomorrow. Okay.
I don't get that line.
Jay
So.
Astro. Good figures once they fix the feet. way better. Jay Astro, Clint Jorgensen has joined us. Same time, toys. We have Kirk Murphy Toy Solutions, Wraith Mace, Tony's Figs, who is someone
Fuck that
else.
guy.
I said the same thing, but I said that until he finally joined Punk's crew, which now you're part of. So now you can finally, leave that other one that you've been doing on Wednesday. Action
I sent
Figs,
in my letter
like
of resignation.
Good for you. It's about time. You'll enjoy it over here a lot more. Okay. I don't control from behind the scenes. Baldy Fox Reviews has joined us. We have Wade Hollison and a 3-star draw. And then, wow, I even told you how to pronounce it. Eric of Melnib One. I don't give a shit. It's Melvin. Elric. I don't give a shit, dude. It's Savage Crucibles. I get that right. Don't make hard words. Every word's hard for me. Anyway. Okay. So let me ask you, how old are you?
I'm about to be 46.
46. That's young. That is very young. My knees felt so much better at 46. So, your name Toy Optics. Kind of tell everyone where you got the name Toy Optics and what it actually is about.
Well, my name would have probably had Sarlacc in it because that's a handle I would use in some various form or fashion for years, but it was all taken. There were no Sarlaccs. So I was like, what can I use to promote a Instagram profile that highlights photography? Optics, right? I shoot toys. I use optics to shoot toys. So Toy Optics. It's very simple. It's not a deep.
But like I said, I don't think a lot of people know. Like, I don't think there was much branding when you're on a toy kind of mood, where it shows. It says David Speck. It usually doesn't say Toy Optics. Maybe I'm wrong.
I put it under my name, so it'll usually say Speck,
Okay.
and then it'll say IG at Toy Optics, and then at the end, Travis or whoever's hosting, we usually do kind of show our page real quick, but
yeah,
a lot of times you're at the end of the show, so a lot of people have already started checking out or leaving by then. But like everybody is pretty good, like Baldy Locks, Bobby, Travis, Tony, like they all shout out and they've hyped up my page in the middle of the show or at the beginning of the show. So now I have a really cool logo.
Yes. Because Tony designed it, and it is part Transformers and part Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And part
and
Camera
then Toy
Lens.
Connection says, I never check out the end of a show.
Yeah.
We know.
I had a feeling that most
usually
people click off before the, as we start saying our goodbyes, most people are like, all right, I'm done sitting here. I'm out.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for you guys. For me, everyone sticks around to see me post the goodbyes. I only found that out because people started telling me how much they really enjoyed that. No, like I said, I saw the thumbnail yesterday and I was like, but Geeks Have Game, GHG. I was like, what the hell is that? And then, because I didn't know the logo, and then when I run it, I'm like, oh, okay, that's that's Bobby's
Yeah,
logo now
Bobby's
or
kind of
name or
pop
his
pop culture channel.
Yeah. All right. So, where were you born at? Are you a California native?
I am not. I am an Army brat. I was born in Washington, D.C. at Walter Reed Hospital, but my parents lived in Virginia. And then I think within 6 months, we made our first move.
Okay. So
So
you got to kind of bounce around, huh?
yeah, did a lot of.
Any
So
siblings?
I have
Oh,
an older sister. Um, Unfortunately, within the last several years, we don't really have much of a relationship anymore. She's sort of exercised
okay.
herself from the family, so it's unfortunate, but because we used to be very close, but sometimes those kinds of things happen. Maybe one day there'll be a reconciliation. I don't know, but yeah, I was born in DC, lived in Virginia. Very quickly, my parents moved to Colorado Springs, which is where they met. My mom's from Colorado Springs. And we were there for 2 or 3 years. Moved to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. A year later, moved to Stuttgart, Germany. Moved to Nuremberg, Germany. 6 years later, came back to the States. And then from there, it was Rhode Island, Georgia, Texas, back to Virginia. And then the weekend after I graduated from high school, my dad took a job with a former general. He had retired by then, and they moved to Ohio, of all fucking places.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Well,
they're out
we'll
here
get into that because. All right. So California was way down the road before you got there. It sounds like.
now, way down the road.
All right. So you said you only have an older sister, so no built-in play friends. Now, living on the base or kind of bouncing around, were there other kids, or were you just kind of with your mom for the most part? Mom and obviously older sister.
So I can remember in like Colorado, and I can remember in Leavenworth. We did live on bases there in the housing, and there were other kids. So like I have distinct memories of like, one little kid would come out and he'd have like there was that micro series for Star Wars. I don't remember what it was called,
Yeah.
but and they were all die cast and whatever. And he had the Millennium Falcon and playing with that outside the front of my house or playing with Hot Wheels. And then in Leavenworth, you know, playing, it was a lot of a make believe. And then Star Wars. I remember I started getting a lot of Star Wars probably when I was around 3. I started getting the figures and and I remember like I'd get in the car from school and my mom I'd have an R2D2 in the package or whatever. Um,
Is
and
that the first? Are those like the first toys you remember?
first line, I would say, right? I mean, Hot Wheels, probably almost every kid's first line to a degree.
Yeah, I say like a lot of people our age, like Hot Wheels, Matchbox,
Yeah.
Adventure People. It seemed like probably because they were probably really cheap, to be honest, or inexpensive, shall I say? But you remember Hot Wheels is kind of like your early stuff, but
yeah, I mean, I remember like there was always a tub that had random stuff in it that I don't remember exactly, like a big horse or whatever. But Star Wars was like the first. I got like my parents would get me, here's a new one and here's another one and holidays and here's more and here's a vehicle, and so that was
would
the
you
first.
say that was that like the first toy line that you fell in love with?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say so.
And unfortunately, the Star Wars toy line, I can't believe we're actually going to say it, didn't last very long. I mean, it was done by what, 84? I mean, Jedi came out in 83 and 84. It was really
4, but wasn't it? It was like 85. They did the Power of the Force line. That's where you had like
wasn't that late?
Well, there was the new Power of the Force line that was 95.
Yeah. Oh
but
yeah, well, but I mean like growing up through the 80s, like
I think it stopped in
Star Wars.
85,
Yeah.
80, 85, 86, somewhere in there. I have a book. Um,
So what? Go on.
no, it was the first toy line that I was truly into and collected, and it was also the first one that like I quit very quickly. And in a very weird and unceremonious way that is very unlike me, because I'm kind of OCD and anal when it comes to my stuff, and especially my action figures and taking care of things. And I just remember, like, I'd still played with Star Wars, but they weren't my main love of toys. And we had one of those Toyota minivans. And I don't know, my mom pulled my X-Wing out of it, and it had been sitting in there, and she was like, "Do you still want this thing?" And I was like, "Nah." And that was it. It just went in the trash.
Todd C says Leatherneck and Saw Viper chatting it up. I gotta say, I didn't see it till now, but that balaclava is like the exact same shape of your head.
It's just a hoodie. It's just a
No. I'm saying like the balaclava on the Saw Viper is like
oh.
the exact same shape as your head, and I'm like, holy shit.
I'll get to see it when mine gets delivered any minute now.
So what other lines did you like? What other toys did you play with? Were you just? I mean, you weren't an only child. How much older is your sister?
11 years older.
Oh, okay. So you were basically an only child.
I was basically an only child.
Yeah, because there was no one else to really. Obviously, you had to buy for her, but your parents had to buy for her, but completely different type of. There was no
Totally
sharing toys. There was
no. And by the time we'd moved to Germany, so when we moved to Stuttgart and we lived there for 4 years, until now, it was the longest place I'd ever lived up into my 20s or whatever. So we were in an apartment, and my dad decided he didn't want to live on a base. If we were going to live out of the country, we should experience what that's like. And so we were in a little town outside of the base in an apartment in this little German community. And I moved there when I was 5. And I kind of had my freedom and my run of the place. I could go wherever I wanted, unsupervised, and the little stores and whatever else. And it's kind of neat. But I was also kind of alone. There was another family that lived in there, and the son who I was friends with, and we did hang out on occasion, but he was older than me, so his interests definitely grew and changed much faster before he started getting into computer coding and playing guitar and girls and all that. And I'm still a little 5-6 year old kid. And but yeah, I was into so much. I was a spoiled brat. I mean, I had I don't speak German. I it started to when I was younger, and then my last 2 years we had to live on a base, and the teacher there didn't want to teach the language. He wanted to teach the history for whatever reason, and I lost it pretty quick. I can pick things out here and there, but I can't speak.
Right, hold on 1 second here.
Here we go. Money talk. Here comes the money.
Frostbite G.I. Joe Repro with a $2 super chat saying, "Good day, boys. I hope your week is great so far. It has been a shitty week." Sorry, it's been a shitty week. But you know what? 8 more hours of work and I'm but thank you, Lenny. I appreciate it. So I was going to ask you that, like, so you there are actually two things now that I want to. So you don't speak German, which is strange either that long. But
I spoke it a lot more when I was there, but
well, that definitely makes sense. I mean, especially at that age, you just pick up, you pick up a language. Now at I'm almost 50. I could imagine being in a different. Oh, I am glitching, aren't I? Am I glitching for you?
Not, I mean, a little bit, but you haven't as of recent.
Okay. I don't know why. Ed said something, and I have the screen going on here so I can see. Okay, so I have to ask you. You said the teacher was more interested in teaching the history of Germany. So, as a young kid, did they ever get into addressing World War II and stuff? Because I've always been fascinated on how
Well,
Germany
well, so
addresses that.
this was a Department of Defense school. So
Okay.
it was all military kids. It was all probably State Department kids, whatever. So I wasn't in school with actual German citizens.
Bobby Wolt says, "Can't be a bad week when you get a GI Joe that looks just like you." But yeah,
That's true.
I don't see it, dude. I don't see it, but
You don't just dye your
everyone else
beard a
does.
little darker, and it's there.
I mean, again, if I do this, I think I never saw that I look like Sarge, but I see Sarge more than anything.
I can see both. With the hat, I can totally see Leatherneck. But so I mean, there's two things. I did all of my elementary school overseas, and I do Department of Defense schools were very well funded. So, I spent kindergarten through 5th grade getting brand new books every year. We had whiteboards in the 80s. We had like everything was always new and clean, and teachers were happy to teach, and I think they were well paid for their profession and all this other stuff. When I moved to Nuremberg, I mean, obviously they taught us German history, and Nuremberg is, the Nuremberg trials, and we did go to that courthouse, and saw the bullet holes, and they talked about what went on there. So they did teach about it. The German teacher who wanted to teach history more than language wasn't trying to remember. He wasn't like teaching history. It all felt half-assed to me, even at that age, and I was very resentful of it because I wanted to keep learning the language.
Yeah.
So I kind of just didn't really pay a whole lot of attention when he talked. But yeah, I mean, and then the other thing is that my parents went over a lot of the history with me. So I'm Jewish. I am atheist. I don't practice, but by birth, by culture, I'm Jewish. And and I grew up in a military family, and my father's father was in the army and in World War II. And one of his jobs during World War II was liberating the camps. If you can imagine a Jewish soldier having to liberate camps. And one of the camps he liberated was Dachau, which is right outside Nuremberg. And so, like, even at 9-10 years old, we went there, saw the pictures, was taught the horrible things that happened. So, like, that it was not something that was ever shied away from me in my youth.
Yeah. Man, this is gonna be the darkest fucking episode I've had.
It doesn't have to be. We could shift gears.
No, I find this fascinating. Like, I had no idea about any of this about you, and that's what this show is. Like, I don't need to say anything. Like, you are telling people so much shit that I don't think that they know. Again, like, I guess when you look back at being like 9-10 years old, you realize a lot more than you think that you do. And you probably being in a military, you're probably raised like that. So, again, you're in Germany, but you said you're on a military base.
Well, so the first 4 years we were in a German town, and then I guess for safety reasons, when we moved to Nuremberg, we had to live in military housing. It wasn't on a base. It was a housing, and I don't know, they'd taken over a town or had been given a town or whatever. And so it was a lot of duplexes and houses and whatever that kind of made up this community that it wasn't gated, but it was kind of watched. It was near the base. It wasn't too far from the base. But like I can remember we lived in a townhouse, and my father was an officer, so it was officer housing, and so it was like a little bigger, a little nicer, I guess. And then our backyard opened up into this huge field, and it was a soccer field, and so that's where like I'd have my weekend soccer games and all this other stuff, and not Cuban.
Yeah, Wade says, I thought you were Cuban. Cuban, Jewish, a lot of times those get mixed.
It's funny. My wife is Persian, and so when I started meeting all her family, a lot of her extended family thought that I was Persian. So they
Oh,
would start
wow.
speaking Farsi to me, and she'd have to be like, no, he's white. We have multiple Japanese. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I work for a Japanese company, and we have multiple Japanese employees. It's amazing how little they learned about World War II in school. And I've always wondered that, because you can't make, I mean, we have a tendency here to make certain things that we did not seem so awful. Um, you can't make World War II not seem awful for Germany. And they're not a communist country, so you're allowed to discuss it, unlike maybe some other countries that they won't allow you to discuss certain things they've done. So I've always wondered, so I just thought I'd ask, just to kind of get an idea.
I wish I could answer that. I wish I had somebody I could email and say, hey, when you, because like the one guy that I knew from the building, like he went through German education.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I haven't seen or heard from him in 30 plus years.
Oh, understandable. All right. So as a kid, you said you really got into Star Wars.
Star Wars.
That, what did you start to get into? Because again, Star Wars ended, and now you're younger than I am. So, what toys came after the Star Wars? Because you would have been really young for when Star Wars was ending.
Yeah, but I mean, they still released the toys for a while after. Because I remember, I was 5 when we moved to Germany, and I was still getting like, I have pictures of holidays over there where I was opening up the X-Wing, the Ewok Village, other figures, other vehicles. I had a ton of that stuff. Like, and I remember the X-Wing I had was the multilingual packaging when I looked at the photo. So it said like the Guerrilla Wars for.
Oh, so you're used to the 5-language file cards.
In a sense, like, I mean, I could touch on that a little bit too, but
no, I have no problem. I explain it. I mean, it sucks that they do it, but
it's those things. It's like I look at those pictures and it's like, wait, I had that box. Holy shit, that one's worth so much more than da 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 da. And I had, there were 2 figures that you couldn't get in the States, Yak Face and Luke in Stormtrooper outfit, and I had that Luke in Stormtrooper outfit, and it was just like, sometimes you just don't know what you're sitting on.
Really?
But you're a kid.
No, and that's why I don't ever ask people like, hey, what toys did you start collecting when you were a kid? We weren't collecting. We were playing with toys. And if you were collecting, you probably had a really shitty childhood.
Yeah. But I mean, I got like Masters of the Universe. I went hard on. I had a bunch of those. I had Snake Mountain. I had Castle Grayskull, a bunch of the vehicles, figures. Like I said, I was spoiled. Right before we moved to Germany. So my dad moved out there ahead of us. So we lived at my grandparents' place for, I don't know, it seemed like 6 months. It probably wasn't that long, but it was a few months. And they'd gotten me my first Transformers. So my first Transformer was Skywarp and Ironhide. Those were the first 2 I ever had. And so like I was big on Transformers. And then it was my first birthday overseas, and I can't remember if I had turned 5 or I was turning 6, but one of the gifts that I opened up was Zartan. So that was
Zertin.
Zyrtec. So it was probably the first of several things my dad regrets getting me started on, but that was my first G.I. Joe, and it just took off and built up from there. And G.I. Joe and Transformers were probably my 2 most favorite. Like Masters of the Universe fell off eventually. There are a bunch of like all those other 80s toy lines. Like I had some Starcom, and those things were really cool with how they did the magnets. And then there were the, whatever they were called, the figures that ran back and forth on the strings.
We were just talking about it. Matthew, Ed, what is that? I vaguely remember that, but we just talked about it the other day.
I only remember it because I only had a couple of them, but I remember it because I lived overseas and I got one and it was a mail order one and something was wrong with it. And so then it took forever Sky Commanders. It took forever to get them to send the right part because you're a little kid and waiting is an eternity. And then waiting for them to come overseas is even longer. And so then it's just like, did it come yet? Did it come yet? Is it here yet? And then it finally shows up.
Anyone else want to say Sky Commanders? There's more room. Okay, Air Raiders was the one I remember Matthew bringing up, not Sky. When we were talking way back, I don't remember Air Raiders, but I think that was the one we were talking about because they did something very similar, right? I think.
I honestly
never talked about it. I mean, a couple
but
years ago.
There was others. The real Ghostbusters. I had the real Ghostbusters. I never had the vehicles or the firehouse. I just had the 4 Ghostbusters and Slimer and Stay Puft. But I remember playing with the slime and
yeah,
I could only play with them. Like I'd have to go to the bathtub, not taking a bath, just the empty bathtub. That's where I was allowed to play with the slime because my mom didn't want it getting in the carpet or anything. So it's like
my dad refused to let me have Play-Doh.
Oh, wow.
He hated, and I fully understand why. Because once it if it mixes, it's basically waste. Now it's fucking Superman ice cream. I don't know if you guys have Superman ice cream. Superman ice cream is like all the ice cream mixed, like all the colorful ice cream. I don't know why it's called Superman. I've been told that it's a Midwest thing, so I don't know why. He hated Play-Doh, so I never had Play-Doh at all. And I don't think I missed anything, to be honest. I feel like I really missed too much. So it sounds like you didn't have like one. Like again, I think it's quite clear.
I was into a lot of different things, but they were all compartmentalized in a sense. It was like if I pulled out my Masters of the Universe to play with that's what I played with. Or I'd put that away and I'd pull out my Transformers, or I'd put that away and I'd pull out Star Wars. I had a couple masks. I didn't have a ton. I probably had like 3 or 4. Sometimes my parents knew when to draw the line and they're like, you have all this other stuff. You're not getting a whole other thing. And so, but my main focus was G.I. Joe and Transformers. And then late 80s, like right before I moved back to the States. And then for the last couple of years, I collected toys. Ninja Turtles was a big part of that also.
Superman peanut butter until I dropped the glass jar. My mom never bought a glass jar of peanut butter again. I gotta say, the fact that so many of those like jam, jelly come in glass jars, you're like, what a dumb idea. But maybe we're doing enough plastic back then. But holy crap, man. How kids did not shatter more of that stuff is shocking.
The stuff that we used to do back then is shocking compared to like my kids now, right? Like I had run of the mill. I could go out. It was that there's a great. Like,
you were told to go out.
We were told to go out. We lived in a neighborhood where we could go out. Like my kids are they're not adventurers, so to say. They're not like thrill seekers. So they're very cognizant and they're very aware. But like I live in a very nice neighborhood, but it's an entitled neighborhood where people think that they're entitled not to stop at the stop signs and that they can go 40 miles an hour in a 25 mile, and it drives me fucking nuts. But so my biggest fear with letting my kids roam around is like them not paying attention and somebody running a stop sign. Cause I can't tell you how many times I've almost been hit just walking to the gym or walking to the grocery store or whatever. And, but they're very aware. And so, now we've been letting them go out more and more, but in a city and how spread out LA is, like they don't have friends that live in the neighborhood. All their friends live in other neighborhoods. And so you either have to make a play date or they all just get on Discord and talk to each other while they play video games. I am an old man, Baldy. Whereas like there's a great cartoon that I saw because they used to watch it called Craig of the Creek. And I think it's on Max, and it's about a young African American kid living in suburbia with his friends, and they're all like elementary school, and what they would do after school, how they would go out to the park, and there would be one kid that would kind of be like the sales kid, you know, you'd buy your candy and stuff from them, and it'd be mapped out and it'd be like, you don't go to that area because that's where these older kids hang out, and you know, you'll be in trouble, or you don't go over. And like, that's how I remember it did a great job capturing 80s youth, in my opinion. You know, you were out, and you were out of sight, out of mind until dinner time, right? And then it was like, oh, I gotta go. And then maybe if there was still daylight outside, you'd run back out and get another hour of play or something.
But isn't it's so weird to think about, because like I know when my ex and I split up, I spent, and even when we were together, I spent all this time with my kids, and then we spent all this time with the kids, like when we split up, when I had them. But when I look back, it's like, dude, by age 11, well, even before, after my mom passed away when I was 13, I was always out. I was skateboarding, doing whatever, even before my mom passed away. Like, we weren't spending time with our parents. Yet now it's like the kids don't want to leave the house. And then again, you see on the news, so you're always worried about something that might happen. But it is a different world for sure. And I don't know if it's better. I mean, there's a lot of things that are better.
It's an interesting thing, because it's like, I remember I was 13 or 14. I lived on a military base, and I lived at Fort Hood, which is the largest army base in the country, dead set in the asshole of Texas. And the PX, there was a small PX commissary, whatever, that was like a mile and a half away. And so we would always walk there. And I was walking there by myself one day, and I am on a military base, mind you. You have to come in through the gates and present an ID. And I remember I was walking on the sidewalk near some grass, and it was a big hill. And this car just sort of creeps up to the road next to me, and the window's down, and he just sort of is like slowing down, pacing my walk. And I'm like looking over, and he's just looking at me, and he's not saying anything. And I'm just like, this is kind of okay. So, you know, I just walk more in towards the hill and away, so that, you know, where he can't bring the car. And so that shit happened when we were kids too, right? Like, that guy could have tried to abduct me, you know, like it was just a creeper thing. So, you know, knowing that I personally experienced that kind of thing did, I guess, make me a little more overly cautious.
Yeah, no, it's understandable.
But
MCR quickly asked, what was your worst skateboard accident? I had to do it very lightly. I sprained ankles and I pulled a groin. And I like to keep it to never be more than that. I have been one of the very lucky ones, to be 100% honest. As crazy as I might have been on that thing, because I used to, I mean, I'll eat some pretty big gaps. I was very calculated. Like, I wasn't going to try. There are people that try stuff that they can't do. And some people just reckless abandonment with anything. But I've been lucky there, MCR. So, and I like keeping it that way. Those people that say, they say stuff like, "Oh, it's not a real session. Do you slam?" No, I'm okay. I'm okay. Nope. Never said that. Never felt that. I'm okay. All right. So, as you're starting to grow up, now where you're at, do you have a middle school, or is it kind of like all one school?
Well, so
because when did you move? Like, how old were you when you moved back to the U.S.?
I was 12. So it was 1990. The day Checkpoint Charlie was removed in Germany was the day we flew back to the States. So I was there for the beginning of the wall coming down. And I had been there to Berlin several times with the wall up, because we had some very close friends that were stationed there. So I'll always remember that. We came back the day Checkpoint Charlie was removed, and we went to Rhode Island. So we were in Newport, which everybody always thinks when they hear Newport, like, oh, big mansions and breakers and rich people. And it's like, there's a complete opposite side to Newport. Now, where our housing was kind of cool. It was an area called Fort Adam, which was a little peninsula. So we essentially kind of lived on a beach, which was neat. It was a rock beach, but
Quickly, your boss is chiming in a toy kind of mood. Yo, greetings from Utah.
yeah, he's getting fitted for those special underwear, and he's converting to Mormonism. That's what he's doing there right now. Hi, Travis. So yeah, so like we lived on this little peninsula, and Eisenhower had a home there. There was this big Eisenhower house, and that's the soccer field was right outside of that. And then when I lived there, Fort Adams was condemned. So it was literally in our backyard, but there was a big gate, and you couldn't go to it. And years later, they redid everything, and I've heard it's opened and refurbished and safe and cool. But so I went to in Rhode Island, it was middle school. So there was a middle school for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it was an eye opener because it was 75% poverty welfare. Because there is a part to Newport that, you know, where everybody that has to work to serve all the rich people or whatever, that's where they live. And
those are the people that make the Newport cigarettes, and they just smoke them one after another, right?
Sure. but like it was, as I said, tying back to, Department of Defense schools with everything being nice and new and whatever. Here I am going to a school that's 100 years old. The books are 60 years old and falling apart. Slate chalkboards, like teachers that have been beat down by the system, people getting kicked out for drugs or fighting or whatever. We had a vice principal. We had a dean. It was like, a dean? We have a dean? Like, never been to a school with a dean before. And his big claim to fame is that he was like a Golden Glove boxer in the military when he was younger. So that was how he kind of kept the masculine, don't fuck with me persona with a lot of the kids. It was interesting. I remember
with the middle schoolers. With the middle schoolers.
Dude, I mean, I remember just walking down the stairs to get to class one time, and there was another kid, and he was in a bunch of my classes. We never said word one to each other, right? So it wasn't like he didn't like me, I didn't like him. We never interacted. And I just remember like getting punched in the jaw, like walking down the stairs to class, and it was just like, what the fuck just happened? Like, why? So it was an eye opener going from that kind of school to that kind of school. And then from there we moved to Georgia, and we were just outside of Savannah. So my dad was stationed at Fort Stewart, and
that's what I was thinking, gun buddy. It sounds like Lean on Me. That's like what I was thinking.
Felt like Lean on Me. So Georgia was its own complete different thing. So we lived in a little town called Richmond Hill. And I think we were supposed to be there for 2 years. We really only ended up being there for like 11 months. So my parents had the genius idea of buying a house. And that was an eye opener for a whole other reason. There was one other kid. It was a pretty new neighborhood. There was one other kid who was my age. So, invited him over. He had a little buggy that we'd drive through the street or whatnot. And I invited him over, and he's showing him stuff. And he said something, N-word. And I was like, whoa. And I was 13, 14 at the time. I was like, yeah, we don't say that in this house. He's like, what are you, some kind of N-word lover? And it was like, yo, I think you need to go now. So that was my year in Georgia. And Georgia was middle school through high school, but middle school was kind of pushed off to the side. But it was racist. It was prejudiced. I was there at my school. There was a black kid and there was a Jew, and I was the Jew. And the black kid was athletic, and so most people got along or laid off with him. But because I was a Yankee Jew, even though technically I was born south of the Mason-Dixon, I was public enemy number one. And I mean, it didn't just come from other students. It came from fucking like the PE teacher. It came from, I don't know. I got into a lot of fights. That was a shitty year, but it opened my eyes and shaped a lot of my
All right, so you're in middle school. Like when you were in middle school, were you still playing with toys? Like it sounds like you were by yourself a lot during
I
a lot
was.
of this time.
I had 2 or 3 passions, whatever. So I collected comics.
Spec moved to where they wrote Dangerous Minds.
I collected and read comic books, which is another thing that my father probably regretted getting me started on. I drew a lot. So
Okay.
I wanted to be a comic book artist. And that was something that stuck with me up until high school. And I collected action figures, toys, whatever. So like in
Now,
Rhode Island,
did you start collecting, or were you still playing with it, or do you kind of switch to a point where it's like, I just like these, I'm gonna buy them. I don't, because I know a lot of us in middle school. I always say this, we were all playing with toys, but we all hid it. And now you look years back later and you realize almost every kid was playing with toys till high school. But were you just kind of like, here
I
they are,
still
like
played
this?
with them to like in Rhode Island, like 6th grade, I was still playing with toys. I was still
Okay.
playing with toys. I was still getting GI Joe. I don't know if I got Transformers as much. I think a little bit. I was definitely getting Ninja Turtles. Like I remember going to Woolworths and finding Ninja Turtles. And I'd still set up and play and have battles. And we'll get to Northern Virginia. um, and then Georgia, comics was a consistent until college. I was still buying toys. I was probably playing with them a little bit, but not as much. Like that's when I was
Yeah.
really figuring out what kind of music I liked. And, you start learning about girls but I never stopped buying toys, right? I just wasn't getting them. It'd be like an action figure here, an action figure there. And that's
Okay.
kind of when GI Joe was winding down anyway.
Yeah.
Like I remember getting that last version of I think I had that version of Dusty that came with the dog. I think it was a dog. I don't remember. But there was Gung Ho with the bandana, and there was also, it was like that tail end, like the version for Snake Eyes.
I think I have that Gung Ho. I don't know why.
I still have that. I kept very few of my original toys, and for whatever reason, out of the Joes that I decided to keep, I kept that Gung Ho.
Because he had like the big. That's like during the big weapons, right?
Yeah,
It was a version 3 with a coyote.
Coyote, that's what it was. So
I have that figure now, but I didn't have it like as a kid. I don't think. The Gung Ho I had probably because I liked Gung Ho. He wasn't awful when you look at some of the other figures.
Yeah, but so I was winding down, because then from Georgia we moved to Texas, and then Texas was 8th grade, and then starting high school in 9th grade. And that was more like getting into video games and still comic books and drawing. And then I would buy, I became big into Spawn. And so when there was the Spawn figure that had the wings that flipped up into more like the cape type thing. Like I bought that because I thought it was cool. And I got the anime Spawn because I thought that was cool. Or I think that's when the Ninja Turtle mutation figures came out. So it was like the Ninja Turtles, and then they transformed into a turtle. So I remember I got Michelangelo. Killeen, Texas, Fort Hood. The straight asshole of Texas.
Hey, Ed, weren't you at Fort Hood there, Ed?
I mean, if you're in the Army, you go through Fort Hood at some point in time.
Yeah, he talks about being at Fort Hood and shithole,
so,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So probably 8th, 9th grade is when it switched more from buying and playing with toys to collecting.
Okay.
Collecting things. And then 9th grade, we moved to Fairfax, Virginia. I finish out high school there. So now we're in Northern Virginia, Matson. And 95 rolls around. Copper's Cove. Yeah, dude, maybe. I don't remember, honestly. The things I remember doing in Killeen were not getting into daily fights at high school.
Fort Hood Keelan wasn't.
There were fucking drive-bys on base, and then the base would go on lockdown. It's just like sometimes people.
I think you and Matthew might have been hanging out at some point in life, man.
Maybe. But so I was in Fairfax, and I lived on basically the border of Fairfax and Vienna. I lived near the Vienna metro. But I went to Woodson High School, which was more my sense of direction at that place is gone. I lived closer to Fairfax High School, but I went to Woodson High School because it was a quote unquote, it was a better school. I didn't set that up. Parents set that up. And so like 95 rolls around, and that's when Power of the Force came out.
I'm sorry. I have Fisherman Bazooka, and there's another one that looks like a fisherman that are sitting in the.
It was Cutter, wasn't it?
No, well, there may be a Cutter, but there's another one. There's Bazooka and Footloose, I think, and I have them sitting in the lifeboat. Leatherneck. Oh, Leatherneck. Yeah. How can I not know that? How can I not know that it was Leatherneck? But I have them in the lifeboat for the aircraft carrier. I'm like, I need to get fishing poles so they can just go fishing. Okay. Anyway.
Oh, so like 1995 rolls around. I think I was a sophomore. It was like I was a sophomore. We were all starting to get our driver's license. You have the one friend that gets the driver's license before everybody else, and he had the car. And if only that were true.
Yeah. So Travis says Speck's knowledge of G.I. Joe is incredibly underrated in the toy community. Do you know what Battle Force 2000 is?
Oh yeah, I had them. I can tell that story too, but but like the real collecting started in 95 when Star Wars came back out with Power.
I remember the Power of the Force very well.
So that was the hunting and getting, and I still have them all, and they're all still carded. So I kept all the figures carded. I bought the vehicles. I opened the vehicles. I kept the boxes. And then if there was any figure I wanted to play with or pose or whatever, I bought a second one of those. And
how long did it take you before you realized you couldn't pose them? They were already posed.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. I had so in my bedroom, I had a futon, and behind my futon, I had a 6-foot folding table. And then on the folding table, that's where I set up all the vehicles and then would put the figures and just kind of let them live like that. And so I still have all that stuff. And so, when my parents moved out to California, I went through all the boxes because my kids were probably 6 or 7 at the time. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Half the stuff isn't worth anything. And if it is, whatever. So all the figures that aren't opened are still packed away in the whatever it's called.
You still have all your Power of the Force?
I do. I opened it up. I threw all the boxes from the vehicles and stuff away. And I was like, they're in a shelf in a closet, and they were there for my kids to play with. So like, have fun with it. These are toys. Enjoy, like, play.
Well, that's because they're worth less now than what you paid for them.
True. Although, like, I think if I'd kept the box, the Slave 1 was still held its value, and the AT-AT and I had everything.
Gun money. The entire Power of the Force toy line is worth $38.
Pretty much. I think I had everything that they released until 97 or 98 when I went to college. I went to college in 97, and then you're a poor college student. I didn't have time to hunt, and I didn't have money to hunt. I remember going to Toys R Us at midnight when Phantom Menace opened up, and I picked up the Stap droid, Toys R Us exclusive, and I think the Mace Windu. And then I think I ended up returning the Mace Windu because I was just like, you know what? I need this money for food.
Joe Fan says in 97, I was 13. You are, well, Joe Fan 84, so I guess now we know what the 84 is.
So the thing, living in Germany, you had the PXs, right? So, and they got the toys. Like, it was great to go there, and you know when the new wave would come out, and everybody would be trying to find the Snake Eyes or the whatever. I remember very distinctly seeing like 4 or 5 flags in the middle of the floor with a thing around them, going, "Can I get it? Can I get it? I want it? Can I get it?" No, and Defiance and all that. But like, there was a lot of stuff that we couldn't get, or my dad would go back to the States to do field exercises every so often, and he'd be gone for like a month. And then he would sneak back like a whole suitcase full of whatever, and that would be what I'd get for the holidays. And it would just be shit tons of Transformers or G.I. Joe or whatever. And so we never, the entire 6 years we were in Germany, we only went back to the States once. And that was between the time we were moving from Stuttgart to Nuremberg. And I saved up all my money because that was like go time. It was like, we're going back to the States. I can go to Children's World and Children's Palace and Toys R Us, and I can go nuts and get this and this and that and that. And let me like, it was funny. It was like, I had these memories of walking into a toy store and just like floor to ceiling toys and organized and bright. And I was like, I don't remember Toys R Us being that way. And then I realized it was Children's Palace because they were the superior toy store, and I missed them.
I loved Children's Palace. Joe Fan 84 says, I want to go to Germany. I only know how to say I'm hungry in 5 different languages just to make sure I'm covered. And Ryan Sweeney, Dreadnought Ryan. Oh, he only says, what's up to Gun Bunny? I guess he doesn't care about anyone else. No, I love Children's Palace. I know other people at Child's World, which was the exact same thing.
Same thing, yeah. So, but it was like,
I love the outlook of it.
I made sure that my parents took me to every single one in the northern New Jersey area, like Paramus and this, that, like any of them I could get into. And I bought all of Battle Force 2000 and Power Master Optimus Prime and a couple other things. But like that was like the big purchase, was getting all the vehicles and all the figures for Battle Force 2000. Hey, Ryan.
Joe Fan says, I never heard of Well, it was Children's Palace and Child World, and they were the same company.
Yeah, and they both
the East Coast. They were Child's World, right? I know where I'm at in Michigan. They were Children's Palace.
I think they had both, and it just depended what store was where or whatever.
But they looked the same, like.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the guy that started that was one of the guys that had actually started Toys R Us too. Don't quote me on that, but I remember reading that.
It would make sense because they were set up the exact same. But what was weird, like when I see the Child World now, it looks the exact same. They look like a palace, like there's white palace with, I think, red tops.
Yeah, it had like the spires.
And Child World is in the same graphics as Children's Palace.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense why they had both, but they did. And now we have none. So if you look it up, but I mean, if you were born in 84, I don't think that you would, because Children's Palace, they went under.
Well, so when we came back, when we moved from Stuttgart to Nuremberg, I think it was 87, 88. And so they were still in New Jersey then.
Let's see if we can find out when they.
And Germany finally got a Toys R Us about a year before we moved back, but they were like over an hour away. So I never got to go.
Okay. Someone can do the research. Someone find out when Children's Palace closed or Child's World, one or the other. I just remember, I like I said, they were right across the street from Toys R Us, and Toys R Us ended up pretty much ending them. 92, they went bankrupt.
Matthew, I just remember I'd drive my dad nuts because I'd be in the back of the car and be like, there's a Toys R Us, let's go there. And he'd be like, fuck.
So when you were in high school, like I said, you were kind of collecting toys or whatever, but you said you got into music. Like, when did you start discovering girls? And like music? Was there any type of music you really got into, or?
So, I mean, I started discovering all that when we moved back and we're in Rhode Island, where it was like, oh, that girl's like, I'm attracted to that girl. I want to talk to that girl type of thing. And you start listening to music and it started off kind of poppy, whatever was sort of popular. And then Georgia's when I really started like figuring out what I liked. It was like somebody shared, they were like, hey, I just got this this album called Core by this band called Stone Temple Pilots. And then it was just like, oh, that's my music. Like, fuck, hell yeah. So it was like, I got into rock and a little bit of like heavy metal, and, like Metallica Black Album came out around that time. And that it was the time of like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and all that. So that was like first concert I ever went to was Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of people, like there's people that just they listen to what's on the radio. Then there's people that find they find their music, and it sounds really stupid. Like, again, I'm a punk rocker. Like, it's more than just a genre of music. I mean, it is a total lifestyle. How I dressed, how I acted, obviously skateboarding too. Not everyone has that. A lot of people just like, hey, I just like whatever's on the radio, and where me, it's like music was a passion for me. Even I didn't play anything. I don't play any instruments.
No, I don't either. But it was something that, it definitely had an influence over, like, I was a grunge guy. So it was like jean shorts with a flannel or a flannel vest and a band shirt under it and a pair of Doc Martens, like trying to grow my hair out long with my frizzy Jufro. No, I was born in 79.
Joe Fan 84 was born in 84.
I'm a little older, not much older, but a little older. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm still at heart, I like rock and metal, and that's my preferred go-to, and whatever subgenres, emo and blah blah blah. But I kind of try and take a Dave Grohl approach, where it's just like, if I hear something and I like it, then I like it, right? Like, there's some pop stuff that pops on, you're like, oh, that's a good song, or sometimes I'm not a big rap guy, but there are some rap tracks that are really good and have a good beat and have good lyrics, and so it's like, okay, that's cool, I like that. But if I'm at the gym and my playlist is going, it's going to be Nine Inch Nails and Toadies and Stone Temple Pilots and Velvet Revolver and Jawbox and all that kind of shit that pops up on there.
Not mumble rap.
Not what?
Not mumble rap.
Not mumble. I fucking hate mumble. Fucking hate mumble rap. If you want to get into punk, I'm not like a huge punk guy, but like I like Goldfinger a lot, and I know they're like fringe punk.
Yeah, they're more like ska punk.
I mean, they have horns, but I don't know that I'd put them in the, maybe their earlier stuff, a little ska subgenre.
They,
but pop punk, I put them more like pop.
Yeah,
punk.
yeah, I guess pop punk is, I'm just the underground. Not all. I mean, again, a lot of people call it underground. It's not really. I mean, it's just not radio play music.
Right.
But no, like I said,
I mean, you mentioned St. Andrews. I've been to St. Andrews. It's just,
you were in Detroit for a while, so.
I was in St. Andrews before that job, though. So there was a job. I moved to LA and I worked at the American Film Institute, which is a grad school for film students. So I went to film school and then I worked at a grad school for film students for a little bit, just to get my feet on the ground out here. And when I left that job, I kind of got into reality, which I fucking hated. And then a buddy of mine that I went to film school with is a guitarist in a band called Thursday.
Okay.
Which they're not like a huge mainstream band, but they're a known band. And they're a New Jersey band, and they were friends with another band that had just gotten a huge break on the radio and MTV called My Chemical Romance.
My daughter loved them.
And so he called me and he was like, hey, these guys are out on this tour and they just fired their cameraman that they've got documenting things. Like, are you interested in doing this? And so I was like, the money was shit. I actually lost money on the job, but I was like, I can go out on the road with like rock stars and whatever and see what that's like. So I said yes for the experience. And so I lived on a tour bus with My Chemical Romance. I lasted about 3 weeks. I got to the 930 Club in Washington, D.C., and their little fucking peckerwood of a Napoleon Complex manager who was from Detroit. So he stood at like 4'5" and thought that he was a complete hard ass. And they fired him at some point, and I believe he became a stuntman in Hollywood, believe it or not. Anyway, fired me when we got to the 930 Club, and he's like, yeah, Warner Brothers isn't liking your footage. And it's like, nobody's seen my footage because I haven't sent you any footage. So like, you could give me a real reason or you cannot. But like, I was like, cool. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm from here. My friends are coming to the show tonight. Like, I'll just take a vacation. You could send me my last check. I'm out. Bye. Because it was fucking hard living on a bus for 3 weeks, sleeping on a bus, crammed in there with a bunch of other dudes, and they were nice dudes. You know, the former drummer recently just passed away last month, I think, or November.
Maybe a little bit longer than that, but recently.
It was recent, and I got along with him.
Fern Troyer's
but yeah, like I was at the night. They played St. Andrews on that tour, so we were in like St. Andrews.
I love that place. I do that. It is the best place to see a show because it's small, it's intimate. Like, you're right there. Like, but it's big enough that you can fit 1,000+ people in there.
The only thing I remember two things about it, because they weren't headlining the tour. It was actually Nintendo was putting on the tour for some reason. So they would like have in the area where the kids would line up or come into the show, they would have setups where you could play Wii's or not Wii's, but GameCubes and all that. It was still the GameCube. And the headliner was this band called Story of the Year.
I know that band. Well, I know the name.
The only band in that entire tour that really stuck around and became anything was My Chemical Romance. There was another band that they're still around. They're smaller, called Anne Berlin. So it was like Anne Berlin, My Chemical Romance, this band called The Lost Prophets, where the lead singer is currently in jail for pedophilia, and Story of the Year. And obviously nobody knew this about the lead singer of Lost Prophets at the time. And living on the road like that. So this was their first tour with a bus, right? So as you know, when you're in a band, you start off in a van, then you get a van with a fucking trailer, then you get a bus with a trailer, then you get a bus with accompanying buses. Yeah. So this was their first tour with a bus and a trailer. And so I was living on the bus with the band, and then the support, the guitar tech and all that stuff, they were either in a van or they were in another bus. I don't remember how that went down. But because they weren't really making a ton of money and their manager was a tight ass, like, we weren't getting hotels. So we'd get on the bus, you'd sleep, you'd wake up in the next town that you were playing in, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
So if you got a shower, it's because the venue had a shower, and not all venues had a shower. And sometimes they didn't even have hot water. You were just grateful to take a freezing cold fucking shower.
Well, I mean, I've been in a lot of these clubs, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
So,
and that's just from the outside. Like, you can see what a shithole it is.
Oh yeah. The only thing I remember is at St. Andrews, Lost Prophets was on stage. So My Chem had just wrapped up. Lost Prophets was on stage. There was a shower there, and it was like right off the side of stage. So it was pitch dark. You couldn't turn the light on because obviously it would spill into the, and like having to take a shower in pitch black with the band playing, you know, you're close enough that you feel the percussion and everything. And I was just grateful because it was a hot fucking shower. And then the only other memory I have is walking around downtown Detroit at like 1 or 2 in the morning. And I'd never been to Detroit before. And then of course there's Detroit's reputation, which it's warranted, right? Like
it is. Yes, it is.
When I was there for the show, I never felt unsafe. You just always have an eye open in the back of your head.
Well, I mean, that would have, I mean, it wouldn't be the revitalization, but downtown, there's still a lot of stuff going. That would have been a bit before the casinos, right?
Probably.
The casinos wouldn't, I don't think that they weren't made yet. So even then, like, you know, you had bars that are open until 2:00 in the morning. I never felt unsafe, but I wasn't going through neighborhoods at 2:00 in the morning either.
No, we weren't
You know?
going through neighborhoods. It was just like main streets. And we were just walking around because they weren't bar guys. So we never did any of that. The only thing is the tour manager was also from Detroit. And he was a fucking monster. He was this like roid taking bodybuilder dude, just massive with, you know, had the giant fucking ship tattoo across his chest. And but everybody was a fucking nerd. He was a toy collecting nerd. The band members were toy collecting nerds and video game nerds and comic book nerds. And I mean, the lead singer, Gerard, like he's working in comics now for the most part. So it was interesting. So it was just like, I thought I was going to like do this tour with this like rock and roll lifestyle with fucking groupies and parties and this, that, and the other. And it's not anything I was ever into, but I was like, it'd be interesting to experience it. And then it was just a bunch of nerds. And it was like, all right, I mean, these are my people. I fit in. So,
so when you went to college, what did you go to college for?
I went to film school. I had a choice. So that when we moved to Northern Virginia, and we were setting myself up at high school and picking electives, my mom was going through them and she was like, oh, look, they have a film studies class. You know, you like movies. That might be interesting. So I was like, okay. I didn't like high school. A film studies class.
Yeah. Clinton says, my friend is going to Detroit next Tuesday. The high is going to be 6 degrees that day.
And bust out that Canada Goose.
Monday, I believe the high is like 2 degrees. Or no, maybe that's a...
When I was there, production set us up at Moose Jaw with the Moose Jaw gave us a discount. I spent the whole crew. We spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars at Moose Jaw, which is like REI in Michigan. I don't know if they still exist or not, but
I'm not sure about. I've never heard of REI.
It's a big outdoor company, clothing company.
Okay.
So yeah, so I took this film study class, and
Ryan says that's shorts weather for next week. Welcome to Michigan. Ryan, I'm going to disagree with you on that. 30, yes. 6 degrees, fuck that. Because there's no sun. It's windy. Oh God, I fucking hate that shit.
But so, I mean, I still wanted to draw comic books, right? I was still planning on going to college to draw comics, you know, like Todd McFarlane was a god to me at the time, and Greg Capullo and Jim Lee and all those guys. But like Todd McFarlane was, you know, and he was the most out front, visible guy with Image and everything. And Spawn, I was a huge Spawn fan. But I started and art classes, and that was my thing in high school and all that. But my art teacher did not like my art style. She hated comic book art. She took the graffiti artists under her wing. We won't relive last night's. And I really clicked with this film studies class. The film studies teacher, the gentleman's name was Mr. Bird, and unfortunately he passed away some time ago from pancreatic cancer. Was a movie buff. you know, he had laser discs. He brought in a laser disc player in his class, and he showed us Bridge Over the River Kwai and 2001 Space Odyssey, and, you know, all these movies, and talked about them and knew a little bit about like how they were made and this, that, and the other. And I came to the realization, and I was a complete Star Wars dork, right? Like, came to the realization that I was going to the movies almost every weekend. That was like my big pastime. You know, my best friend who lived in Vienna, which was one town over, and we'd known each other since we were born because our parents were friends around the time we were both born, and then we moved, but they'd always remained in contact. And so he's that friend where years could go by and we don't say a word, and we get in a room and things just pick up where they left off.
Yep.
So, you know, he and I would go to the movies every weekend. We just watch whatever. And then I realized that I was going to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video or whatever it was, and I was renting from Star Wars to Jedi and Making of Empire Strikes Back, like almost weekly or maybe monthly. But I was watching those things all the fucking time.
So quickly, Matthew says 2001 was the first movie I ever saw in the theater. I first read that and I was like, bullshit that you didn't see a movie till 2001. And then when I read the rest, I was like, all right, no, you meant the movie.
Return of the Jedi was the first movie I ever saw in a theater.
That's the first one I remember seeing. I saw it 7 times. My cousin saw it 8.
Wow.
I saw it 6 times with him.
So I was like, I think I want to make movies, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was like, I want to be George Lucas. I want to produce and direct and write and do this, that. So when it came time for colleges, I went to 2 schools. I had a very tense relationship with my father at that point. You know, he grew up baby boomer. Natty Gann. And
am I missing something? Because I don't even know what that is.
I don't either. You know, he came from that family where it was drilled into him, like, you have to go to a real college, you have to get a real degree, you have to, you know, like, you know, be a doctor, be a dentist, be a fucking accountant, because I was good in accounting in high school for that class or whatever. And so we like butted heads. And the most hurtful thing he ever said to me when I said I wanted to do comics or whatever, he's like, what if you're not good enough? And our relationship now is fantastic.
Yeah.
But and as a father now, I can see it from his perspective. Doesn't mean that he went about verbalizing it the right way, but
isn't it crazy how that is?
Yeah. But so they have this thing called National Portfolio Day, and you know, around college admissions times, all these art schools travel the country, and they set up tables, and you can go see all these colleges and present your portfolio. So, you know, RISD, the Rhode Island School of Art and Design, which is usually hailed as the best art school in the country, or Ringling, or Chicago Art Institute, or whatever. Like, they're all there. They all have representatives. You can go, you can get your portfolio critiqued. And if I was going to go to art school, I had discovered very quickly that I wanted to go to the Art Institute of Chicago. And I think at that time they were ranked number 2. I had no interest in going back to Rhode Island, and I didn't think I had a chance in hell in getting in there. And I went, and my mom made my dad take me to the portfolio day. And I went and I presented my stuff, and she said, send in your application as a formality. Like, if you want to come in, you're in. And that's when my dad flipped and was just like, my son just got into art school. Like, he can do whatever he wants. So I applied. I applied there, and my best friend's cousin had just gone to the summer program at a school where they were building a new film school. Because, like, you know, Dawson's Creek or whatever. It's like, I want to go to USC. That's where George Lucas went to, or UCLA, or any of these big colleges that are known for film. And, you know, and you got your parents looking at you
singing that fucking song in my head.
Don't waste your life, Lawrence. I'm not showing my portfolio. That it's not even whatever it is. You'd probably be disappointed. I was good. I don't think I was that good.
I also want to say I watched Dawson's Creek. How the fuck did we not realize this guy has a full fucking beard and his fucking throat is like deeper than Darth Vader's? Like,
I
for
don't
the
know.
love of God. Anyway,
I did not watch that show, but
I liked it. It's not. It's no 90210. I'll say that.
but so they sent me a pamphlet and they were like, hey, you might want to look at this place for film school. And it was, at the time, it was called North Carolina School of the Arts. Now it is the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. It was always one of the UNC campuses, but it was like the redheaded stepchild at the time. And we went and we toured the facility, and they had just gotten a huge grant. And it's a performing arts school. So there's a school of dance, a school of music, a school of drama, school of film, and then there was an attached high school that had visual arts. And the film school was the hated school because they had just gotten this huge infusion of cash, and they were building all new facilities. So they were building real sound stages, and they were getting real equipment and this, that, and the other. So I applied to two schools, Art Institute of Chicago and North Carolina School of the Arts. And I got into both. And at the end of the day, I, had a chat with myself, and it was like, do I really want to draw comics? Do I want to draw the same thing repeatedly over and over and over and over again? Do I want to make movies? And my passion had moved more to movies at that point.
Yeah, so I gotta address some things here. So Wade says Pacey was the man. Matthew says Pacey was the best, especially in Fringe, which is his roadblock action figure. Okay, so I will never see Pacey again not being Dr. Death. And if you didn't watch that show on, I think it was on Hulu, it's about the doctor that was like doing back surgeries in Texas. I'm sure Matthew knows all about it. It is fucked up. So now, now when I see Pacey, I think of that doctor that was like killing people and shit.
Well, now he's on this show called Dr. Odyssey, which is kind of like The Love Boat meets ER. I haven't watched a single episode, but I actually interviewed to be the B camera operator on that show last year. I did not get it. I don't regret not getting it.
ER meets The Love Boat.
And it's got Don Johnson.
Yes, I've seen it. I've seen it pop up, but I've never paid attention to what it is. But I know, yes.
The only reason I wanted to get on it, or I'd hoped that since I didn't get the show, they had mentioned me coming in to like man extra camera or day play or whatever. I wanted to be there and wear a Lieutenant Falcon shirt and just see if he said anything.
I doubt he remembers he did that movie.
He may not.
You could take it. You could take the action figure in and be like, "This looks nothing like you," or anyone.
Look like any human.
Funny thing is, I have Grunt's head on him. So if you put Grunt's head, you got to use a little bit of sticky tack because it has a different ball joint. And once you put the beret on, it's hard to tell that it's Grunt. So I have the next 20 figures downstairs. So when I was working out a couple days ago, in between sets, I was like, I'm putting everything together with them. So when I do each figure, so I had to put the old Falcon head on them. And man, I popped that thing on it, and I was like, God, that thing is awful. Like,
it's
when you pull something out and you're like, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was. Nope, that is probably worse.
It's not a great head. I don't think that it is a strong sculpt, but
there was a lot of reasons to it.
I think whatever, that's when they switched into a new factory and they were doing new face printing or whatever on them. And because we got everybody was complaining about the cover girl with the too dark eyeshadow and all that.
No, there was, Lenny told me the whole story, and he said the guy they were dealing with didn't want to really do the sculpt. So they kept going back and forth. And he said he finally sent one over. And I was like, I think him and I believe Corey was still there. And we were like, you know what? That's fine. That's acceptable. But he goes, you know how um, he has dimples. Well, when it went through the heating process, it changed the shape of the head. So once it changed the shape of the head, that's how it came out. And they were already stuck because they had given it the okay. And he told me this off camera. He goes, I will never use that head again. I promise you. Uh, he goes, I hate it. I thought it was going to kill our line. And have you ever, like, whenever you're on StreamYard, have you ever been in control where you can see everybody at the bottom? So when I was doing it, I can see you. So during the intro, my old intro, it had that wave, and I could see it. I could see his face. It's the last picture that comes up, and I could see his face, like, oh my god. And then when we finished, I played it again, and we talked afterwards. And wow, I said it to him. I was like, I can see your face, and he goes, I can't believe you put that figure in there. I thought that was going to ruin our line. So he hates it as much as us. But there was other reasons. It had to do with the sculptor. But he said the one we picked wasn't like that. But once it curated and everything, or I don't know how he said it, it changed the shape and made it look that much worse.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. And again, he didn't actually tell me on air, but it's been a long time, so I don't think it really matters. But it was not the one that they showed us. Now, I never asked about the cover girl. The cover girl didn't really bother me.
It doesn't bother me either. I like it. I like the retro one too. It's different enough.
I think the retro one's going to look better, but some people have really, especially models. I mean, look at Grace Jones.
Sorry, my family just came in, so if you hear background noise.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just probably hear my kids walk in and out, and, I wonder how long some of them, either one of them will look at me and realize, like, I can't look over at you. I'm in the middle of a show.
My kid does that. They just come up and they stare, and you're just
Yes.
like, I can't. I'm in the middle of something right now.
I know, and it's like, especially I'm the host. Like, I'm not supposed to, if you're like, hey, I got, like, I've had to do it at times, but I try not to. Yeah, on my Monday show, who cares? My Monday show, who cares? It's just me, and especially my daughter. If she's gonna interrupt, she's gonna interrupt. Can't stop that. So anyway, so you actually went to film school, and you're one of the few people so far that went to one of the few that went to college, and you're still in that industry. So you start getting jobs, obviously. Are you collecting any toys at this time? Comic books?
I started getting comic books again after I graduated college. It was like the IDW, G.I. Joe, and I think they had Transformers also. So I was just kind of reading those. And I'd pick up an oddball thing here and there, right? So like I can't remember which Transformers line there was, but there was a Starscream, and he's a smaller one. I still have him somewhere, but it was like, that looks like a G1 Starscream. It looks great. I'm gonna get that, And this was 2002, 2003-ish. And then I want to say, so I'd always pick up like an odd or end here or there. I think I was buying and collecting DVDs more than anything else at that point.
So let me ask you that. I think as collectors, and again, I tell everyone, I don't know why I stuttered there. I tell everyone, when I was younger, I would take everyone's old skateboard and I'd hang them on my wall. And I wasn't collecting the skateboards, but I wasn't collecting to be a collector. But when I look back at it, I was collecting. And I feel like as a collector, all of us, we always have to find something else, even if we don't even realize we're doing it. Because I'm kind of the same way. Like I didn't want to give up the DVDs for the longest time. I kept collecting them. I was big into CDs. Now I'm like, if it doesn't fit on here for music, I don't want it. All right, I don't want CD. I don't want physical music. Just give it to me on my iPhone. And movies have kind of come the same way. Like I don't really want to buy DVDs anymore, but I have a huge DVD collection. And I try. Obviously, I have other things to collect now. But do you find yourself always collecting something, whether you realize it or not?
Oh, I realize it. I get into moments where I'm able to sort of break myself of the habit. It's like an addict, right? You're in it, and then you're able to like walk away from it. Maybe smoking cigarettes, like my dad. He's quit and started again. I don't know how many times. You stop. So like, I want to say I kind of started collecting again 2006, but I wasn't really collecting toys. I'd pick up an odd and end figure, right, here and there.
Yeah.
Big into Transmetropolitan comic book, and there was a spider, whatever his name was, figure, and I picked that up, type of thing. I always liked looking at them in the stores, but I wasn't buying.
I taught my kids, you always go to the toy section first. Even when like I wasn't buying stuff, because diapers and stuff like that was more important. But I've always gone right to the toy, because it's like, if there's something there, the milk will be there.
Right.
The milk, it's going to be there. But the toy, you may see something that you didn't realize. So,
yeah, no, and I do the same thing. I go straight there, and then I go get what I need to get, if I don't forget to get it because I got distracted by what I was seeing in the toy section. I got rid of physical media as soon as I could. As soon as I could. It was just, I think I had over 300 DVDs, and I was living with another film guy at the time. I was dating my wife, and we had our big collection, and it was on shelves and on display, and we could always pick something over and throw it on and watch. And then when I moved in with my now wife, I was just like, I don't want all this stuff. Like, I need to get rid of the physical media, and everything was going streaming anyway. So I still have some Blu-rays, but for the most part, I boxed up that collection and went to Amoeba Music, which if you're in LA, you know what Amoeba Music is or was. And I sold it all to them for whatever they'd give me for it. And then all my CDs, I have a friend who underwent I still had them, but they were in books. I had a buddy who ripped everything. So he ripped all of our collections, and we all had them on a hard drive. But then iTunes Match came along and put our stuff up on the cloud, and now there's iTunes Music. So it was like we had a leak in our place. Our upstairs neighbor had a leak in their fridge line, and it came down and it fucking wrecked my kitchen and my kid's closet. And I had all that stuff in the closet, so I had to take it all out so that they could remediate and do all that stuff. So I was pulling all this crap out, and I had it like way up high, and I had 3 or 4 binders full of CDs. I was just like, what am I going to do with these fucking things? And another buddy of mine who isn't big on streaming because audio file, sound quality, whatever, he's like, give them to me. He's like, I'll rip them at, lossless, whatever. And I was like, great, you can take them. I don't want them.
I sold all my CDs, and come to find out, and this is quite some time ago now, a lot of those punk CDs, they were like one print and that's it. Like, and some of them went for a fairly good amount for what you would think, well, more than what I paid for it. And I had them all burned, so it didn't even matter. And now you can just go find it. Now, once I found, it was called, I still have it on one of my computers. What the hell is it called? SoulSeek. You could find anything. It's a peer-to-peer, and you type in whatever you want, and if something comes out that day, someone has posted it, and you can't ever get in trouble because it's just a peer-to-peer. It's like, hey, you're my friend, I'm just sharing it with you. Yeah, my buddy turned me on to it, and man, I gotta say, it was awesome. because I stopped buying. I stopped buying most of my media for the most part, unless if it's like a band I really like. I'm like, I'll just buy the album, then it just gets loaded up onto iTunes, and we're good.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last. If I bought a piece of music, I'd buy a song or something because I was using it to cut a reel too, right?
I just bought a Real American Hero from Derringer, so I could do the Hulk Hogan commercial. I needed like a 10-second clip. And I'm like, I know I have this on one of my old computers, and I have to get all those files off again on one of the new computers. But I'm like, damn it.
It's easier to just spend $1.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, you know what? I don't care that much.
Yeah, and I'll occasionally buy a movie on iTunes,
if it's on none of the services you pay for.
Yeah, I mean, 10-1 odds are like the last movie I bought was Transformers 1. I knew it was going to end up on Paramount Plus.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was going to end up on there the day after I bought it, but I knew it was going to end up there eventually.
Is it out now? Is it out?
Oh yeah, it's been out.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that.
And it's a good movie, but
I've heard nothing but really good things. Not really good, but that it was good.
It's good. It's solid. It's a bummer that it'll probably never get a sequel. But so like, I'll buy occasionally, or maybe the last movie I bought was Deadpool versus Wolverine. Or did I buy that one? I don't remember.
That came out on Disney Plus really quick.
Yeah, I may not have bought that one. I may have waited, but so like once in a blue moon, I'll buy some. I buy the John Wick movies. If John Wick comes out, I'm gonna buy it. Period. But.
God, those movies are so good.
Yep.
Who knew that? Who saw that one coming?
Pure popcorn enjoyment.
Yes, it is. You know what? I said when you watch John Wick, it is truly a video game. Like they're in the middle of the street shooting, and there's people just going around roundabout, like exactly like if you played a video game, like the pedestrians, on the background got. Like that's all that's going on. It's like I was like, this is a video game, but I don't care because it's awesome.
No, it's totally entertaining. It keeps my attention every time. I don't care which one it is. I mean, the first one is still the best because it was the limited budget and they had to do more with less, and really like prove themselves. But I still love 2, 3, and 4 and the way that they raise the bar every time.
If you give me the Bourne Identity 1, 2, or 3, I'm stopping and watching it.
I just watched the third one again the other night.
The third one is awesome. Like all 3 of them, and then there's that one with not Jason Bourne.
Well, there's 4, right?
Well, there's 5. There's the one without.
And then there's the one without Jason Bourne.
Yeah. So the 4th one doesn't have Jason Bourne, and then he comes back and it's like he's all jacked up and shit. You're like,
yeah.
All right, this is when he was into his workout or he was doing a movie or something. But Taken is another one. If Taken comes on, I'm stopping and watching. Because you're like, this guy would scare the shit out of me. And you know what's coming. And I don't care.
Yeah, you're just along for the ride. You know what it is, and it's not trying to pretend to be anything different. So
now Taken, it pisses me off because, spoiler alert, in the third one, Famke Janssen is killed off.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with any time they want to kill her off because she's just hot. Maybe she shouldn't do third acts or third movies, right?
True. I just realized that. Yeah.
Maybe they shouldn't just do it X-Men 3 in general. Frostbite says, how do you feel about your daughter traveling overseas after watching Taken? It's not happening. All right. It's not happening. I'll just say that because I don't have that skill. All right. I don't have that skill. Her and her mom are flying to San Diego in February to go visit her sister. And that I don't even like, and she's going to be with her mom. So
San Diego's a fun city.
I just don't like being that I mean, it's a city they don't know. And yeah, my daughter's lived there now for, I should be there like a half year or so. And it's good because it's for my daughter's birthday, for Olivia's birthday, to fly out there. And they haven't been out there yet, but it's kind of like, it's really far away. Now, I have no problem going to Joe Fest. Okay, so after where we're at. So you get a job. When do you start dating your wife? And how is she with all this collecting?
Oh, she fucking hates it. Can she hear me right now? Or does she have her earbuds in? She must have her earbuds in. Or she might be taking a shower. I don't know. But she fucking hates it. Oh, dude, I made a note to myself, and I was like, for the photography aspect of it, if Entertainment Earth gets the NECA street scene back in stock,
They have it right now.
I know, I'll order it and to use the and use the whatever it is, the influencer code to get the 10% off and the free shipping and the and I've been keeping an eye on it for months because it was like, oh, it's going to be back in stock in November. Oh, it pushed to this. Oh, it pushed to that. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm safe. And then boom, it's in stock. And of course, Entertainment Earth ships up from Simi Valley, 45 minutes north of me. And she got home at the same time I did today. And there's just this massive box outside the front door. And she didn't even say anything. She just gave me daggers. She's just like, where are you gonna put that? You gonna take over another corner of the room? I was so much guilt.
But you can build no. I'm putting stuff on it.
Dude, I don't have anywhere to put it. But here, this is where it is right now. I built it. It's stuffed in a corner amongst.
Look right there. Look right there. You see? You have all those vehicles right there.
Yeah, but then it's tall enough it'll cover this painting, and I bought my wife. I had this made for my wife, and I don't have anywhere else to put it.
You know what this means? You need a bigger place.
No shit. I need welcome to Los Angeles, where a shack costs $1 million.
Well, yeah, that's why I need a bigger place. One kid ain't ever moving out, it seems, so I'm never gonna get his room.
So I don't think she's ever truly liked my collecting, but
when she met you, you were already collecting stuff, so she understood
a little bit. So and the stuff that I was collecting at that point, I was getting comic books and I was getting Gentle Giant Star Wars statues.
Well, those are like a foot tall, right?
Some of them, but I was getting the busts. I do have some of the bigger ones. I have the giant ass Jabba.
Those take up space
right here. I know, but I had I had my own place and room to put them. And then when we moved in together, we had a 2-bedroom place and no kids. So I had an office and I had shelves and I had them all displayed in the office. And then that was, around 2007 is when the 25th anniversary Joes came out. And then I just started collecting those and going nuts and buying those, and those displayed all over the office and in box. So again, everything was in box. If I wanted to open a figure, I'd buy a second one. And then we decided to have kids, and she was pregnant. And I was like, shit, I'm not going to have an office anymore. What am I going to do with all this? So I sold off a huge chunk of my 25th anniversary, and I probably sold them too soon, but shit happens. And then the few I didn't sell off, I used to have a storage unit right across the street, but I also was a camera assistant. I was an assistant. So I had a lot of equipment that I needed and a cart and all this crap, and I'm not keeping that in my home. And we have a communal garage. So I would rent a storage unit and I would keep collectors' stuff over there. And then I kind of stopped collecting because I had the kids taking up most of my time and money and whatever else. I stopped comics. I didn't have time to read them.
D. Griff says the difference between us and hoarders is that we pose and display our stuff.
I do throw shit away. I do get rid of stuff occasionally. I am trying to sell my Gentle Giant statues right now. I've sold a couple, but none of the big ones. It's funny that somebody is willing to pay, I don't know what it was, $600 for a Lego Boba Fett statue that's this big, but nobody wants to pay $400 for like Jabba's Cantina band that's, you know, a foot by a foot or whatever. Yeah. So I had stopped collecting when I had my kids. But then your kids get to a certain age, right? And I had always loved Lego. That was another toy I played with a lot as a kid, was Lego. And when they got old enough, man, I started buying my own Legos. So it was like they had their Legos, I had my Legos. I only opened and built a few of the sets. Like there's the Ultimate Collector Slave One. And so I have a closet full of sets that I never opened and built because I never had the space to display them. And I was like, yeah, one day I'll have a big place and I can build them all and display them. But then with Lego, they go out of print and then they start going up in value.
I tell people, I'm like, first off, investing in toys as a retirement is stupid. But if you're going to, buy Lego because it'll never go down in price and almost always go up. Because I sold a bunch of Andrew's stuff because he had like 7 or 8 boxes of stuff he got for Christmas and his birthday that he never opened, and they all sold for well more than what the asking price was originally.
Yep, I had bought
shit.
It was the one Lego set I bought when I was collecting the 25th anniversary stuff, and it was the Indiana Jones Temple set. They had come out with an Indiana Jones line again. And I kept that and I never opened it. And it was just displayed in the box. And then it just ended up in the closet with everything else. And so, you know, I wasn't collecting anymore. I was buying Lego. When COVID hit, that's when I started collecting because that's when Classified came out. And that's when I finally decided like, oh, I like Mandalorian. I guess I'll start getting some Black Series. Because I was always of the mind of I'm never paying $20 for a 6-inch action figure. And now look at me. And that's not to include all the tubs of the shit that I can't fit on the shelves.
I refused to buy the field variant figures that just were painted. I'm like, it's not a different number. Yeah, I like the colors better, but I'm not spending another $20 on another figure. And I still haven't. Well, I have one, but I have so many doubles, and so, but that's where I drew my line, and I'm like, that was stupid.
Yeah. But so, you know, COVID, I started collecting again, but I also started selling some stuff. So like that Indiana Jones set that I bought in 2007, 2008, it was a $60 set. Some guy bought it for almost $400. And, you know, stuck in the closet. I have the Ghostbuster Firehouse set. I have the Batman 66 cave. I have a bunch of rare Star Wars stuff. My wife, as much as she hates it, does indulge on occasion. So one of my birthdays, she got me Jabba's sail barge. Not the new Ultimate Collector one that's huge. The one that came out in like 2008 or 2009. And so I have that and like Jabba's palace and the Rancor pit that goes under the palace. And so I have all these old sets that are sitting there that I never built, and they're just going up in value. So I don't think I'm ever going to build them, but it's not time to sell them yet either.
No, I get that. I get that. My buddy, he has the Falcon. He built a, you know, he built an ATST with it and a whole scene and put it in a coffee table. It has lights and everything. And we were skating a couple weeks ago. And he said that he just bought the AT-AT that they re-released.
The Ultimate Collector one, the
yes.
big $800 one.
Yeah, and I think he got it for like, did he say 600?
So
I think he found it on sale at Walmart. It was just like his wife was just like, get it. You don't buy anything else for yourself. And so I think he got it on. I know he got it on sale. I thought he said around 600, maybe a little bit more.
So I got that Falcon, you know, whatever it retailed for, $800, $700.
Yeah.
And I was at Target, and I was up in Woodland Hills, so about 30 minutes north of me. That's out where Travis lives. So, and I had my kids with me, and there's a Lego store in that mall and a Target. And I was in the Target, and I was just cruising through the toy aisle with my kids, and they had the end cap, the clearance end cap, and I saw this big box, and I was like, and you couldn't get it. It was sold out at the Lego store, and I was never going to buy it. I wasn't going to spend that much on a Lego set. And I just see this box, and I was like, you're shitting me. No fucking way. And I walk over, and there is this giant $800 Millennium Falcon on clearance, never opened, for $540. And come to find out, you couldn't buy them at Target, right? You couldn't go into a physical Target store and buy this set, but you could buy it online
and then return it.
And the rule they have is if that gets returned and it's not a normal sale thing, it's got to go straight to clearance. So
really?
I got lucky. I guess like the Lords of Time shined on me, and I saw this thing and I just put it in the cart without even thinking about it. I was like, I'm fuck, what? And so I called my wife and I was like, look at this. The set's $800. They have it for $540. I was like, she looked at me and she's like, I guess I can't say no to that. And I looked at the kids and they were like, yeah, do it. Yeah. So I grabbed it. The box was a little beat up. I think that was another reason. And that's probably why the person returned it, right? Excuse me. They were hoping to get like a nice collector, whatever. And the box came and it was a little beat up. And they were like, fuck this. And they returned it, and Target put it on super clearance for me. So that was sitting in the closet. And then COVID hit and we were looking for things to do. So I was like, okay, this one I'm going to open, and built it with the kids over the course of like a week. And then it sat out here in the living room on a box for almost a year. And my wife was like, do you just want to get a glass coffee table to put it in? And I was just like, no, like we just don't have room for a fucking coffee table. If we put a coffee table in the middle of the room, it's just going to eat up even more space that we don't have. So I was like, I tore my fingers up going backwards through that thick tome of directions, rebagging everything and putting it back in the tub.
Gosh, that sounds awful.
It does. Well, I mean, here's the kids, they had tons and tons of Legos, so many bins of Legos, and they had great sets. They had the Ghost, the Star Wars Ghost, both versions of the Phantom, all these other Star Wars sets, bunch of other sets, things that like they're worth money now, right? They had a smaller Millennium Falcon. Everything's just mixed in bins, as they should be. They're Legos. You're supposed to take them apart and build what you want. And we took them over to my mother-in-law's house, and I have a couple things that I keep over there, but I don't want to use it as tons of storage. I don't want to take it that way. Or I would. But and now my nephew is 4 and he's just getting into Legos. And so it was like, let him just take some of those tubs home. And I was like, I have this dream that I'm going to be an old man in retirement and I'm going to physically go through these tubs and recreate every fucking set. And then like wife hits me. She's like, no, you're not. So I was like, all right, let him take the tubs, play with the Legos. But I know that there's sets in there where it's just like, fuck, that'd be worth so much money right now.
I wanted to, like you, but with the Real American Hero. I'm like, I want to have just a shitload of hiss tank. I'm sorry, hisses. A shitload of hiss. And vamps and like all this. And I'm eventually going to do all this. And then, I'd have like 3 or 4 of them or whatever. And then when Classified came out, it just kept growing and growing. And I found myself pulling away from, these 3.75. So then I actually started selling some. I'm like, well, I don't need 2 of them. I don't need 3 of them. I have 2 that are complete. Let's just get rid of them. And if one sells for $100, well, you've made out, right? But I had that exact same idea, except with G.I. Joe. Like I'm going to build, and I don't know. I don't want you. I always envision the people that either have like the slot car, big, huge tracks, and they built a city, or train track, like train sets. That's what I wanted to do with GI Joe. Now classified as pretty much said, well, you need a bigger home if you ever want to do that.
Yeah. Two years ago, a buddy of mine texts me and he's like, you're all into toys and GI Joe. What's a Defiant worth? I was like, oh, I don't know, like, $600 to $800 if it's in good shape or whatever. And he's like, I just got all this stuff out of my mom's basement. He's like, would you be willing to like come help me clean it up, go through it, sell it, like whatever. I'll pay you to help me sell it, do whatever. And I was like, I'll come down just to see the shit. So I went down and, there was some cool stuff. Like there was a Defiant, right? It had seen better days. It had been in a trash bag in his mom's basement. And I guess a family of mice decided to make the control area underneath the shuttle their home for a while. So there were some chew marks in some places and some rat shit and whatever. So, we hit it, hosed it down, hit it with hydrogen peroxide, cleaned it up as much as we could. Those blue doors are fucking brittle as hell. So cracks here and there. The spring thing was broken because obviously that was engineered like shit. Some of the treads were broken off, but it's complete. It's totally complete. Even the little cover that goes for $100 for the spring thing, like it's got everything. And then even it had payload and whoever the driver is. The only thing the driver's missing, he has the antenna, but he's missing his pistol. But he's got that hard to find antenna. And then payload, I think, is missing an arm on the backpack, but pristine file cards. The figures are in pristine condition. And I was like, man, it's kind of broken. Like, I don't know, like you'd probably be able to sell it for donor parts. Like maybe it would be like, maybe you'd get a few $100 for it, whatever. And we're going through other stuff. There was a Sky Striker, pretty beat to shit. There's a complete Night Raven in great condition. The original headquarters, which I think is complete or pretty close to it. And then there were a couple vamps, a couple stingers, a couple fangs. One of them's broken. A couple snowcats. One of them's broken. A whale, which is missing some parts. It's missing some parts and it's brittle. It had a water moccasin that was basically crumbling into pieces in my hand.
I had that too, like literally crumbling.
There was, I think there's a HAL. I think there was the other gun that came out around the same time. I can't remember.
The flak.
The flak. The ram. There was a ram. All the little. There were a bunch of the accessory packs, and then there was like the
pack rats.
The pack, not the like the stands and guns and helmets packs.
Oh yeah, the accessory packs, yeah.
And then like the shooting range and there were two or three of the outposts, the tower.
Oh man, I gotta complete that.
I'll go through. I think there are two. One of them's complete, one of them's not. There's a ton of shit, and then a bunch of figures. And I was slowly going through it. I kind of stopped. I need to get back to it, but I was going through it and piecing everything out and seeing what went with what and this, that, and the other. And I had these dreams. Like, I'm not a huge fan of his. I'm not going to shit talk him, but the retro blasting guy.
Yes. He's not a fan of me.
Yeah, I can. Whatever. Before I realized who he was and how negative and whatever he is, he had those videos, and he had a series of videos on restoring a Defiant.
I learned how to restore. I restored my Night Raven by watching his video.
Yeah. So I watched that and I was like, oh, one of these days I'm going to get around to restoring this Defiant, and it'll be a jewel piece of my collection. dude, I haven't had time. I haven't had money. You know, and well, here's the thing. So I was helping my buddy clean all this stuff up and go through it. And he just finally looked at me and he's like, dude, I don't have the time or the desire to go through all this shit to make what would be the equivalent of just a few bucks for me. He's like, this shit is making you so happy right now. He's like, take it. He's like, if you want to sell it, sell it. If you want to keep it, keep it. He's like, all that I ask is that if you do decide to sell it, just like take some nice photos of it first. And so I was like, what? So I loaded up my car and took all the shit back. And now that's all at my mother-in-law's house.
I'll drive out there and pick up that Defiant. Just get out of your way. That's my holy grail. That's the one thing I don't have. That is like,
I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet.
that is my holy grail. And I made a joke about when I have an extra $3,000, and Woody was like, about $4,000.
Well, this one's not in $4,000 condition. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I don't have $4,000. So.
But I had a Defiant as a kid, and so it meant a lot to me to like get that one back because it was one of my favorite sets. There was a kid. This was in Nuremberg. I think this was my last year there. It was the year that the Flag and the Defiant and all this stuff came out, and we'd have these big community yard sales. And this kid, same age, same class, whatever, but he became a skater kid. So he was into freaking Airwalk shoes and Power Peralta and watching all the videos. He quickly, you know, he's the one kid who got the Flag, and we all went to his house so that we could see it. Like, this is what the Flag is. Oh my God, this is cool. But as quickly as he got into it, he got out of it. And we were having one of these community yard sales, and my mom runs up to me and she's like, you better go to their house now. I was like, why? It was like, he's selling all of his G.I. Joe stuff for like stupid prices. She's like, I was like, is he selling the aircraft carrier? And she was like, yeah. So I ran all the way down there. Somebody had just bought the aircraft carrier. Do you know how much he sold that thing for?
$20?
$5.
Oh my gosh.
But he still had a Defiant that I bought for $5. He had a Terradrome that I bought for $5. He had the oh God, I just forgot the name of it. I have a complete one in box, and Baldy got me the figure, the pilot Ghost Rider at Joe Fest. Oh. The stealth jet.
The Phantom.
The Phantom, the X-19.
So I never had that, and I acquired a big lot, and it had the shell. So then I started looking at it, and I just started ordering pieces. The only thing that I'm missing on it is the wings, or the tail fins. The only thing that I need.
I just need the file card, and it's complete. It has the instructions. Okay, the jet's complete. I had, thanks to Baldy, I have the figure with the scarf. So I just need the file card, and that thing's totally. And then another buddy, he was like, dude, this has just been sitting in my room. He's a big Lego guy. He's like, I have no use for this, and I know that like you'll get some enjoyment, or you'll sell it when you don't need it, whatever. So I have that. That's probably the most complete thing I have. But at the time, I bought that guy $5, like all this shit for $5. And so like I played with the crap out of that Defiant. And then I don't even remember when I sold it or how I sold it. I eventually sold all my G.I. Joes and all my Transformers in one whopping lump to a comic store for way less than they were worth, so that I could get money to buy my first car.
What kind of car was that?
It was a 1985 BMW 525e or 528.
Fucking foreign car at that. God damn it.
$2,000, fucking gold. It was a great car. I loved that thing. But in the end, yes, it was worth it. But you sit there and you're like, fuck, I sold all those toys. I kind of wish I had them. And I kept my Power Master Optimus Prime, and I kept a couple assorted figures. So like getting all that stuff, like I never had the Whale, and I never had the original Vamps or the Stingers. So like that was a bit of like coolness to get that stuff. But I had the Snowcat, I had the Defiant. I didn't have a Night Raven. I always wanted the Night Raven. And so like I have this stuff, and I met that threshold of like, I need to probably sell some of it. I started cataloging some of it. There's also a ton of extra pieces. Like there was a Rattler in there somewhere. The Rattler's long gone, but like all the missiles and the missile racks and the bomb racks and shit are all there. So like, I probably need to go through and get rid of stuff, but I don't want to get rid of all of it.
So let me ask you this, because it sounds like you don't sell off a lot of your stuff.
It depends. I do and I don't.
Okay. Because I know, like, I have a lot of stuff here, and I don't normally turn around and sell my stuff. And it's because the stuff I'm not buying anything because, oh, this is the cool new thing, right? Yeah, sometimes I'll just order one figure here or there so I can test it out, see what it's like, because I'm going to do a review on it. But I don't turn around and sell most of my stuff because I bought it because I liked it. So then when I go to, I'm like, I might as well get rid of this. I'm not, I'm not displaying it or whatever. And then when I look at it, I'm like, I really like this. And are you the same way with that? Because it's kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah, I get attached. I get attached to things, and it's just like I sold 95% of my McFarlane stuff, and it was easy to say goodbye to. And,
well, that's always easy.
Yeah, and there was when I kind of started getting into some of the Mezco stuff. Two of the ones I really wanted was Spider-Man 2099 and Batman Beyond, and they were both exclusives, and I was able to buy them for pretty decent prices and undervalue. And then, they were on the shelf and I'd play around with them. And then it was like, I love Spider-Man 2099, but this figure, like, it doesn't pose the way a Spider-Man should pose. And I know I can make money selling it. So I'm going to say goodbye to this one. And then, there was no real good Batman Beyond figure on the market in the 6-inch scale. And the Mezco one's decent. It takes a Mezco interpretation. So there are a couple nitpicks here and there. And then when McFarlane redid the Batman Beyond this past year, I picked that up. And so then I was like, okay, I can sell this particular Mezco and get more than what I paid for it. And then bring it back into the hobby. But I do have a hard time letting things go. I mean, look at these Gentle Giant statues. They used to be all on display. They have been in their box in a closet since 2010. And I finally came to a point where I was just like, they're taking up space. Will I ever be able to display them again? And if I do have the space, am I going to display them again? And I went through a lot of them, like this giant ass Jabba the Hutt. I mean, this thing is literally, it's like 2 feet by 1.5 feet tall.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
It's massive. I mean, here, you can kind of see the box. It's huge.
My old buddy, he huge Star Wars collector, and his whole basement, it was like a museum. And he got in all the Gentle Giant stuff. And I remember he bought that because he found it like really cheap, and he'd have stuff delivered to his work, so his wife wouldn't see it. It's ex-wife now, but. And I said, "How do you bring this in?" And he goes, "Well, I'll just bring something in, and if she notices it, she'll be like, 'When did you get that?' And I'll say, 'Well, it was in the garage, and I was out there, and I was like, I really like this. I have so much shit out there.' And I was like, yeah, that makes sense."
Well, so like when
I started big, that's what I remember, because that was what he had bought, and I was just like, what the fuck?
Was when I started, I opened up all the boxes and took them out so that I could photograph them to list them for sale, right? And I'm looking at them, and it's just like, yes, this is a very cool statue and really detailed, and all the stuff it comes with. And I had the mail away Bib Fortuna that magnetizes on the base next to it too. That actually sold. But I'm looking at it, and I have some problems with like the paint color now that I see it, and I'm still like, this is a great art piece.
Yeah.
But do I really need it? And then, a couple years ago, I was able to get a Black Series Jabba the Hutt, and this was all still during COVID. And a buddy of mine is into model making and painting and all that. And so like I found the files and sent him this.
Oh wow.
And so like it's a hell of a lot smaller than the Gentle Giant thing. The action figure looks more accurate than the statue does. And I can actually have it out on display. So it's like, you know what? I have that. I don't need this big statue anymore. So
I love right now that
everybody's talking about cars.
yes. Hey, before anyone, I'm not mad about it. I think it's awesome that we have a community where people can just be like, they just start chatting amongst each other. Like, so don't take it the wrong way. But
if you guys want to start talking about cars, I'll talk about cars. I mean, I had that. I've had 1989 Prelude, which unfortunately got obliterated. That car was phenomenal. Stick shift. Had the rare optional center console armrest that they didn't all have, which unfortunately got crushed when I got hit in the seat, and that met in between. And what else? I've had a bunch of the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, the SUV. That thing was a hoot. And then I used to have I had the Challenger. I had a very modified Challenger RT. I had it modified to put down SRT power. It was black, and I had a purple AAR CUDA stripe going down the side of it. I had the custom anodized emblem made with the Mandalorian skull on the front. I did not have the 4-wheel steering. I wish I'd had the 4-wheel steering. I had an SI. I've had some fun cars. Those things can be bigger money pits than toys.
oh, I'm sure of it. But again, like I mean, I went through a lot of money skateboarding. Like I'd break a board. Like there were days I broke a board in a half hour, and you can't take it back. You fucking, you're kind of doing it at your own risk. I think that I spent way more on toys though. I think this hobby has,
in the long run, probably.
like I was looking at everything, and I made more than I spent last year, which is good. Like from YouTube and everything, YouTube, Amazon, Entertainment Earth, I made more than what I put out, which is good. That's how I look at this channel. Like, hey, if it can support this, first there's supposed to be a little bit, but once you get to the point, you're like, hey, I'm pretty much fucking supporting this. This would be awesome. One day I need YouTube to support everything that I do, then I don't have to work at all. I just do live streams every day. What do you kids think about all of this stuff?
I don't know. What do you think about all this stuff?
I think the toys are cool, so I'm not complaining.
I mean, he's just getting into Warhammer. If you want to talk about expensive hobbies, he's sitting over there painting his miniatures as we speak, and he's doing a damn good job of it. But
Wraith Maze is just gonna fucking pop up out of nowhere.
But I didn't. You ask me if I wanted him to get that shit. I fought it for the longest time.
Ooh, yeah. Got you into it, too.
Patsy asks, what 40K army?
What are you building?
Death Guard.
Death Guard. I don't know what any of that means. I did the mini painting class with him. It is kind of cathartic. It's sort of like building Lego sets. It's a good way to just sort of like zone out and be creative and do a thing. But I also I got all of us a Hanukkah gift this year in the form of a 3D printer, and I got one that's supposed to be the best at printing minis. And then I've been doing stuff for dioramas and photography. So, eventually, hopefully, I'll get remotivated to actually shoot some photos.
There's a lot of good 3D printers out there, and I mean like the people that are doing. But I have one, and I just I'll make walls when I need it. I'll make barrels. Like I mostly do like little things just for backdrop. probably the exact same file that I have because the lid doesn't stay on, right?
There's no lid on that one.
Okay, but when you print the lid, it doesn't stay on there.
It just prints as one piece.
There's ones like that I thought that because the first one that I did, I thought I made the lid too big, so I printed up more, and then come to find out the lid isn't meant to stay on; it's just supposed to be on top of it. What is that? Joy Toy Warhammer figures are amazing if you want another line to collect.
No, I don't need another line to collect.
I don't
I'm
think
gonna
any of
answer,
us really want to collect other
yeah.
lines.
I got the Bamboo A1 Mini.
I believe that is what is. Ed, are you still in the chat here? Is that what Radnom has? Because he got sponsored by him just by, and I think that's my buddy has 2 different bamboos. I think
I bought it because obviously space is a concern where I live. But if I had to do it over again, and the cost of it was right, it was on sale with Christmas discounts and all that, so it was under $200, which I think for like a 3D printer, you can't really sneeze at that. And it's highly rated. You know, if you get the 0.2 millimeter nozzle, it's supposed to be almost there with resin. Yes, you're still going to get minuscule layer lines, but like it makes it worth not having to deal with all the chemicals and the steps and everything that resin. Yes, he did, asshole. But if I had to do it again, I would probably get the regular A1 because the Mini you can only print 7" by 7" by 7".
Yeah.
And so like I printed these, but I had to splice them in half.
I hate that.
And then and then the back, I think I dropped the connector piece, the back piece that they glue onto, I had to splice that in half. And so now, you know, to print these 8 parts took 14 hours. And then I had to spend the time to like glue them together. And then you hope that like the seams don't stick out and do all. So it was just like, if I had to do it again, I'd get the regular A1 that has a slightly larger print bed. I think it's the same size print bed that all their other larger printers.
Yeah, that's what my buddy has, and I'm not sure what Radnom has, but I know my buddy. He's backed. I think he backed one of the bamboos, and then he just bought it. He has like 5 or 6. Actually, has more than that, and yet he's not using them all. He only uses a couple. I'm like, he gave me another. He gave me one. He's like, "Do you want this?" I'm like, eventually I'll get to trying to use it. You know, I already have one.
The nice thing is like, I don't know shit about shit when it comes to 3D printing. All the math that's involved in ironing and overhang and infill and support and all that bullshit. And the nice thing about the way these bamboos are set up is they are proprietary in terms of all their hardware and everything, but it's like an Apple computer. I took it out of the box. I removed the couple screws they told me to remove. I plug it in, and I immediately told it to print the little Benchy boat test print.
Yeah.
And that thing was done in like 20 minutes. And so, you know, then I was able to just go find these files and just start printing shit. So it's like, you know, I'm in the middle of printing all the pieces right now for a bat signal.
Oh, wow.
And hopefully I'll be able to do some pictures with that.
Kenzo says, am I a collector of printers? I feel like a lot of these guys that get into 3D printing start doing just that.
Well, it's that thing. It's like, man, if I had a second printer, then I could get this round started on doing this stuff while this one's finishing doing. Now, I don't have the time or the money, or I have the time right now. I don't have the money or the space. You know, talk about not liking this hobby. Was not happy when I said I got a 3D printer, because it was one of those things where I said I wasn't going to get one. The kids had been asking for one. I said, I'm not getting a 3D printer. Not going to do it. And then I just started doing some research, And I was like, all right, if I were, what would be the one to get? Everything pointed towards that. And then it was like, oh shit, that much? It's on sale for that much? Oh, okay.
That's how I ended up with my dog. Literally, someone posted it, and I asked about it, and she goes, "Are you interested?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. I was just asking." And then I happened to be up at her work, and she's like, "Hey, those people with the dog are here on the patio. If you want to see it," I'm like, "I don't." And then when she came back, I'm like, "Yeah, I want to meet them." And that was it. And then I said, "Well, if you can be here next week when I bring my kids up, if they like him, then we'll take him." And that was it. Now he's the third freeloader in my house. Now he is the official third freeloader, as he just passed out right now. All right, so I know you have a YouTube channel, but you haven't done much on it. So, and that became a point of contention when I asked why. Why would you put it on someone else's channel?
Oh, when the initial video
review.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what is it that you're looking for? Like, what are you looking to do with your YouTube channel?
I don't know. I had no inkling or inclination or desire to have a channel. I didn't. I had no desire. And, I'm
My daughter came in one day needing a ruler. And I'm like, I don't have a ruler. And she needed, I'm like, I don't know. Why would I have a ruler? So, and that was on the stream on Monday. I think it was on Monday stream. And sure enough, people are sending me like the links to Amazon. So I ordered like, I think it's an 8-pack of rulers for like $5 or something. I'm like, never will I not have a ruler. I told Olivia, I'm like, you can take one at a time, but you got to bring it back.
Right. Have them numbered.
It's the Dewey Decimal System. She's got to check them out, like the old library cards.
So I had no desire to do it, and Nemesis Enforcer was coming out. People were getting them, and Travis was getting all hot in the pants because he hadn't gotten his yet, and mine was coming before his.
What you know what they say? If you're not first, you're moody. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I say. That's what I say.
You still in the chat, Travis?
Right now, Tony's dying laughing.
So I got mine before he got his, and he's all the way up in Woodland Hills, and I'm all the way down where I am. And so I said, I was like, listen, I got 2. So if you want to come down and grab one so you can do a review, just give me yours when it arrives. And, he probably didn't want to make the drive, and I don't blame him. So he was like, hey, would you do a review for the channel? And I was just like, okay, like, let me see what I can do with this. Like, I've seen reviews. Let me see what if I can make it happen. So I was like, sure, I'll do this. So I did it. I hated every moment of it because you have to listen to the sound of your own voice. You have to, the setup, the this, the that. I'm very particular in how I want to do things. Because Travis was like, just film it and send it to me and I'll edit it. And it's like, no, if I'm going to film something, I'm going to cut it. Like, I'm going to shoot because that's how I'm shooting it.
Yeah, I feel like that would be really hard for you because it's what you do as your profession. Like, I'm shooting it a specific way,
And so it's like I have ideas and more ideas manifest as you're doing it and whatever. So I did it, and then I went through and finished it, and then I sent it to Baldy just to say, hey, just give me your thoughts. And Baldy was like, well, I only have one thing to say. Why don't you have your own channel? And I was like, God damn it. And so I was like, why don't I have my own channel? Like, I could do this, or maybe I could do other things. Maybe I could do lighting tutorials. Maybe I don't know. Like, maybe I should try it. So I was gonna debut it on my channel and Travis's channel after talking to Travis about it. And then you know, I talked to Travis and I got his perspective on it. And I did make the video for his channel first and foremost. So I wasn't trying to rob him of that. And so we just made the deal that we would premiere it on his channel and then he would hype up my channel. And that was fair to me. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do. And then, so I started a channel and I didn't have anything for it. So I made like a little montage of like my still photos to, I think, a 9 Inch Nails song, just to get something out there. And then the dragonflies started shipping and I got my dragonfly first. So I was like, okay, I'm going to rush and do a dragonfly review, but I don't want to do all the fucking figures and everything. Like, it's going to take forever. I just want to do the dragonfly. Excuse me. So I did that and posted it, and it got a good amount of views. And, you know, Travis hyped it up and shared it. And then he did the review on the individual figures. And then, you know, it was like, I knew the John Wick figure was coming out soon, the third party, the Aton Toys John Wick figure. And whenever you try and find reviews for those third party figures, they're really hard to find. Yeah. Or they were filmed by some YouTuber in like Taiwan, or just, there isn't a lot out there. So I was like, this is a really cool figure. I'll do a review on this one. But knowing all that, like, I don't want to be a reviewer. I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to be a toy reviewer like that. Like, if I do a review on occasion, cool. There were a couple figures I got here and there, and I was like, I could do a review on this, but I'm feeling lazy right now. I don't want to be beholden to my channel, and I don't want to be beholden to feeding any kind of an algorithm. So it's just like, if my channel doesn't take off because I'm not constantly giving it content, then so be it. But right before the holidays, you know, those new Jada figures came out, right there, the Cammy DJ. I didn't have Guile yet, but I was like, these are always fun. I want to do some photos with these. So I did one photo, and then I was like, maybe I should film the next one and just talk about how I go about and light a photograph and set up a photograph, because it's an art form, right? Everybody's style is different. And I come at things, yep. Sure did. Me and Bobby B. But look, you can't even tell. It's sitting right there. So I approach things from a cinematic standpoint, and I light from a cinematic standpoint, because that's what I do in the world of movies and film. I am a camera operator, and I am a director of photography, mostly on like lower budget stuff or whatever, and I camera operate on bigger budget stuff. But that's what I do, and that's the perspective I come at things. So, you know, photography was always a passion. Street photography, landscape photography. I don't do strobes. I'm not a flash photographer. And so maybe I lose out on like some flashiness to my shots with that. You know, when you see, like, I'm sure 1.6 shooter uses a flash, and I know that Matt, Galaxy shooter, the guy that does, Matt Cohen, the guy that does all the Hasbro stuff, who's
Matt, what's his name?
Shooting the Galaxy.
Yeah, Shooting the Galaxy. Real name. He
uses flash photography and strobes, and it's not that one's better than the other or this, that, and or the other.
That's what you like.
That's what he, and I don't have experience with it, right? I haven't shot with strobes, so the last thing I need to start doing is like learning and investing in freaking strobe lights.
It sounds like your wife would love that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, ideally, like, there is a lens or two that I would buy, and I'm not even doing that. So, but thankfully, like, I have existing gear. You know, I have a Nikon. I shoot on a mirrorless Nikon, a Z7, and I have newer lenses that were made for this sensor, but I tend to use older vintage lenses, manual focus, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old pieces of glass that have their own characteristics and look and visual style. And I just use static lighting like I would light a movie scene or a TV show scene. And so I made a video on how I approach lighting that way, how I did the setup, how I set up the lights, kind of went into like, here's how I did the settings on the camera to get this, why I chose the aperture, you know, and it's the first one I did, right? So there's things to learn from that and things to talk about from that. And when I posted it, I didn't get necessarily the feedback I'd asked for, because it was just like, hey, what techniques do you guys want to learn about, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know, like once I get the motivation, like time and motivation, and to take a photo here is a whole to do, because I have to clean off the dining room table and pull all my stuff out and then set it all up and then break it down when I'm done, because I can't just like leave it up and be in the way of somebody trying to have breakfast in the morning. And I have to take them at night, usually when everybody else is asleep, so that I'm not getting frustrated.
Yeah, Tony's kind of filled me in on that, saying that you're at the mercy of a smaller place, so you kind of have to wait till everyone goes to sleep, or if no one's around, no one's home, then you have your limited amount of time, which is very frustrating. It's frustrating me, just like me doing my reviews, which I do back here. I do everything on my phone, and again, it's not like they're not highly edited, obviously, but it'd be way different if I just sat down. I had a camera that's already meant to go. You hit it, you record it, put it on your computer, and then you edit it. Where I'm like, here it is. All right, now I move it over here. It sucks, but it's like, that's how I do it. But. And Matthew says, Speck, I suggest you check out Photo Dave Toy Pics. He's got a good channel, and he's a designer pro photographer. He has a book and does tutorials. Good dude.
Okay.
Let's say I like your idea of what you're saying. Like, just you don't want to do toy reviews.
I mean, I don't want to not do them, but I don't,
you don't want it to be your sole purpose. Just like what I keep telling Tony, like, you customize things, and people want to know about that. Not that they want to know how, not that they want to know you customize. They want to know, well, how everyone talks about dremeling out a head. Well, how do I do that? How do I remove paint? I did a quick video on how to remove paint. It's always getting views. It gets like 50 views every 48 hours. It's like, still, it just keeps.
It's an interesting thing to it. I mean, like Tony, with the painting, show us your painting. Show us how you paint. Yes. Show us how you thin the paint out. Show us your process, how you layer, how you do a face, how you do, like, there's a lot of interest in that. And as my kid has gotten into Warhammer and I've started doing a little bit of painting, and that also translates into painting the stuff for the miniatures. And then I even I just did this. I ended up with two, because I bought the single and then I bought the 2-pack on clearance. I had this little R5D4. And so since I had a second one, I just decided, like, screw it. I'm going to see what I can do to dirty him up and age him and rust him out. And it's fun. But like, I watched some videos to learn some techniques, and I figure or hope or whatever, or think that like there would be some interest in that with photography also. And I don't.
That's just it. Like, people don't know. I don't know how to do lighting, and there are 100 different people. Obviously, I mean, thousands of people. I'm sure they do a YouTube channel, but then you find someone that does toys, and now it's something specific. Do you follow Emerald Knight Photos by any chance? Emerald Knight?
I might.
Great guy. Hung out with him a couple times, hung out with Joe Fast and everything. And I said, I love when you put your photography up on Instagram, because you put the picture, and then the next picture is that photography and everything that you use. the camera, the lighting, the shutter speed. Like, I don't understand any of that, but it's really good for someone that is getting into photography and they're learning, and then like, oh wow, this is what this guy did, and then once you flip it, he tells you everything that he did. No gatekeeping, right? I hate the gatekeeping thing, you know. And I do understand gatekeeping to a point with some things, but like I said, I think what you were talking about, if you're doing a channel and you're showing your lighting, and it leads to, you know, they're informational stuff that's always, they're evergreen. They're going to be there forever. You know, lighting doesn't really change. They may add lighting, but you know, it's not like it goes away. Same with the painting, and that's what I've been telling Tony for quite some time.
The technology changes a little bit. You know, now we're LED lighting, and there's some good and minuses to that. Or I'm trying to figure out some of these cheaper, less expensive LED lights that can replicate the effect that an actual incandescent light could do, like in terms of hard light, because you know, most LEDs are very soft light, but they're starting to get there with that. And so it's just a matter of, it's like, well, I want one of these that I can buy for 20 to 40 bucks to do that hard light, rather than having to buy a professional light for 300, 1200, 6,000, you know, like, and I don't need a $6,000 studio light for movie making to do this kind of stuff. I don't need it to take up that space. I don't need it to draw that much power. I don't need it to, I don't want to be that kind of a gear owner. I never have, you know, like there's a lot of these guys that buy their own cameras and all that to shoot these shit. And it's just like, I don't want to be that, because then you get pigeonholed into that kind of stuff.
Matthew's asking, what LED replicated incandescent?
Well, I mean, incandescent is really, it's just like light that falls on an object. So like almost any LED can replicate incandescent. It's just a matter
of, were talking about, I think you were talking about how it's mostly softer.
Soft light.
Yeah.
There is, I haven't bought it yet because I haven't wanted to spend the money, but there's this company. He's the greatest of all time, and history reveres him as the best comic book drawer, and his original ideas and his superior feat skills. There's this great company, I'm sure they're a Chinese company, Ulanzi. These lights, full RGB, full daylight to indoor color temperatures. I don't remember where they go, like something to 7,000 Kelvin to 3,000 Kelvin. Indoor light versus outdoor light. The higher the Kelvin number, the more sunlight. You know, sunlight is like 5,600 Kelvin. Indoor lighting, incandescent lighting, is like 3,200 Kelvin. And then you have the spectrum in between. Like fluorescence usually lies somewhere around 4,000. And then obviously if you go higher than 5,600, you're getting into warmer, brighter daylight. But these are great for that because they'll do tungsten, not incandescent, tungsten. They'll do tungsten lighting, they'll do daylight lighting, they'll do full RGB spectrum. And if you wanted to use them for motion, they have little built-in scenes like cop car or fireworks or fire pit or whatever. These are like 20 bucks on Amazon. It's buried in there. They make these smaller cube lights that are kind of like Lume Cube. Lume Cube is basically like the name brand version. So they charge a little bit more for them.
Okay.
I have a set that are kind of on perma loan from a buddy, and the batteries on them are almost shot. They're nice because they're waterproof. They all have magnets in them, so you can stick them to things if you don't have stands or clamps or whatever. Joe Fan has a hunger. I understood that. I got that reference. But they make this Ulanzi company has one of their cube lights, and I think it's just a daylight balanced light, but it has a kind of Fresnel lens that can magnet. They all have magnets on the front, so that you can clip on filters, diffusion, or barn doors, or snoots, or whatever. Snoots are the little cones so that you can kind of pinpoint the light. And so they have one that kind of comes with this sort of like focusable Fresnel lens. So I want to get that because I think that can kind of replicate a Fresnel light, which is a more punchy, harder light that you can adjust the focus on, from super hard to slightly soft. And then that's where, if you haze up a scene, you can see the shaft of light come through it. It's harder to do that with these current LED lights.
Matthew says the magnets don't stay on long.
I've had an issue with the Lume Cube ones popping out, but these Ulanzi ones have been pretty solid.
Ulanzi.
Ulanzi. I mean, like, this is a Lume Cube. This is a name brand. And then I have a bigger Ulanzi light. And I got this one because I thought it'll be a slightly bigger light. I'll get a little bit more punch out of it to kind of get that hard light look. And I got one photo where I was able to sort of get those kind of shafts of light coming through with the haze.
Yeah.
But it's still really difficult to do because in the end, this is still a somewhat soft source. This with like the coupon or whatever, this was like $60. Has a built-in battery, doesn't last very long, but you can have it plugged in right there. This has a wider spectrum. I think this does 2500 to 7000 in terms of Kelvin. Doesn't do RGB. It's just tungsten and daylight. But different tools, how to utilize the tools. So those are things I'd like to if I do more videos, or when I do more videos, would like to focus on. Like, I've had an idea right now. I need to come up with the idea for the shot, but a lot of people, my smaller ones are buried, so I'm going to be pulling out giant ass cards. We use reflector, right? We take a white card, these foam core cards, and you bounce or reflect light. So if I don't want, even for as soft as these are on a plastic figure, especially one that's shiny, it's going to be hot, hard light. So if I want to knock that down and make it softer, I'm going to point the light away from me and into one of these and reflect the light back onto me. And the further away I take this, the softer I get that light. So that's fill, right? But you have... Wow. I'm that interesting, huh? I put everyone to sleep. But like, you have this. You can do something called negative fill. And so, a lot of people know about bounce lighting, whether it's intuitive or they figured that out on their own or they watch somebody else do it. Like, it's kind of something that you can discover. But a lot of people don't know about negative fill.
You see, like, I find it fascinating what people can do. And I think it's great because same thing that I told Tony, I go, it's not just like if you're showing customizing and showing how to paint, it won't just be toy people that find you. It'll be people that are like interested in painting, whether it be dolls or whatever. They might find your channel and be like, oh, wow, this actually helps me out for what I'm trying to do. And, getting Tony to do videos like pulling teeth. I mean, he tells me the other day, he's like, wow, he's like, I did like 4 videos and I have them all scheduled. Like, I listened to what you said. I was like, it's about time people start listening to me.
Well, the thing is it's like the setup. It's like, okay, there's some times where it's just like, I just want to paint. I just want to put something together, or I just want to take a photograph. I don't want to have to worry about filming the photograph while I'm setting up the photograph.
Yeah.
And I'm using my phone for all of that because obviously I'm using my camera for the actual photograph. And sometimes using these digital SLRs because of the shallow focus is not ideal for trying to shoot a video like toys and all that, where you ideally want deeper focus. So sometimes it's just like I just don't want to deal with the pain in the ass of like, okay, I got to put my phone in the little holder and I got to move. Is this a good angle? Okay, cool. Oh yeah, I got to record audio. Now I have to, sometimes it's easy because I talk to myself anyway. So I'm talking to myself as I'm setting shit up anyway. So it's like, okay, it's kind of natural to and then just explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it.
Yep.
But yeah, sometimes it's like I just want to focus on the photograph. And right now I haven't even been able to muster up the energy to focus on a photograph, let alone making a video about making the photograph.
No, and I fully get that. And it does take a lot because especially like you're on a time, and I guess in many ways it seems like you're on a time restraint because once your kids get home, if it's on my kitchen table, it's they want to eat,
Well, it's just as always, it's things are Hollywood is very slow right now. There has not been a lot of work, unfortunately, in the last year. So I've had a lot of free time. But it's like I take my kids to school and then I come home and I go to the gym, and that's hour and a half, 2 hours there, come home, eat, because now you're starving and you want to fuel your body, shower. By the time I get out of the shower, sometimes it's like, cool, let's do this. Let's take a photo. Other times it's like, hey, the kitchen looks like shit. Let's clean that up. Other times it's just like my back is shot for the day and I just want to lie down on the couch and not do a damn thing till I have to go pick up my kids. So it's like sometimes there is the time and I just squander it, but there's a reason why I squander it. Sometimes there's things that just need to be done for life. And sometimes there's, okay, no more excuses. Let's just shoot something.
So do you find, without having a lot of work, it's easier to intercept the toys so your wife doesn't see them? Yeah, Kenzo also has back issues, so he feels for you. I feel for you because my ex has had 4 back surgeries, so I definitely, even though I don't have to deal with it, I watched somebody go through it. I feel for anyone that has back surgery.
Well, thankfully, I've not had back surgery.
Back issues, because back surgery, back issues, it doesn't get better. I hate to say that. Like, it does get better, but like, man.
I have been seeing a specialist for the past year. So basically, well, I'm not going to talk about it in depth because we're on a live public channel, but I have been seeing a specialist for the past year. So I've been trying a lot of different things. I've tried PRP, which is the platelet replacement therapy. So they take your blood out and they separate the platelets and then inject it back into the trouble spots. The first time I tried it, it seemed to do okay. And then I tried it again and it caused massive inflammation.
Isn't that what Tiger Woods was doing?
Possibly.
He was
supposedly it's supposed to be really good on joints, but it's experimental. And
Tiger Woods was doing it, but if I remember correctly, he was also seeing the same doctor that Chris Benoit was seeing. That's how we know he was taking steroids, even though they'll never admit it.
Well, and so then the next thing to try after that was I tried like a localized, not an anesthetic, but like just sort of like a smaller steroid injection, a corticosteroid.
Yep.
And that didn't seem to do much. So then that's when we tried or it was more like a lidocaine with the steroid mixed in. And then we tried the PRP. I didn't like the reaction after the second time. So then we did a little bit deeper. So it was a full on, like it is a procedure. They knock you out. You're under full anesthesia.
Yeah.
It's called a facet injection. So they go right into the facet joint on your spine and inject a corticosteroid. So I had a round of that right up here and it seemed to work really well. Like it improved my range of motion and it helped with a lot of the day-to-day pain and inflammation. So then we went lower and tried it because some of my issues float around the rib joints. And So I did 3 main shots there a couple months later, and that it caused instant weight gain. So like I put 10 pounds on instantly, which you feel, and does the opposite for your back. You know, like, so I fucking hated that. And I'd worked 2 years to lose a shit ton of weight and get back into shape. And so like to instantly put 10 pounds back on, even like most people, I hung out with a friend today and he's like, dude, you're still losing weight. And it's like, no, dude, I just put 10 pounds right back on. So it feels good that it's not noticeable, but I notice it and I feel it. And then again, like it's been causing flare-ups and inflammation. So it's just like, I'm just ready. Physical therapy helps. Going to the gym helps. Keeping active helps. You know, when it does flare up, it fatigues. It's very fatiguing. People just don't understand that. Even it's a hard time to get her to understand it sometimes, where it's just like, I could be doing nothing, but because it's hurting or bothering me or it's inflamed so much, like I'm just on my back for a day because I'm just tired, and because my body is working to counteract or fight or heal or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, Mattson's right. Like staying stagnant is the worst thing you can do. And I've, noticed that, like, even when I hurt myself at the gym a couple months ago, I was like, okay, I'm still going to go, and I'm just going to go to lighter reps and lighter weights and do different exercises, and while that particular area is healing, because I know if I stay stagnant and I don't do anything for 3 weeks, like, you just progressively get worse. The pain gets worse. Like nothing gets better.
And even after back surgery, they want you to get up and walk away right away. Like that's like Susan's first 2 back surgeries. They wanted you up right away, just to walk around, get that blood flowing. It was that third one where it had herniated into her spinal cord, and they had to put a patch on it.
Yeah.
And they're like, she has to be laid up on her back for 48 hours, which is like against everything they want you to do. Like they want you to get moving around, but they can't because it might pop that patch, which I didn't fully understand exactly what it was, but it's like, holy shit, that's just so, it's awful. But no, that's rough. And again, I think it is hard for us, to fully understand. I know my kids, especially my son, be like, mom always says she has this high pain tolerance, but I don't think she does. And it's like, dude, I have seen the shit your mom has been through. All right. She has some pain tolerance, that's for sure. Not as high as mine because I had to deal with it for so long, but that's a whole other story.
No, it's just one of those, you learn to live with it.
Yeah.
To a degree. I mean, like right now, I'm just super inflamed, and I told you it's because I did have a gig last week, and it's not what I typically do. I'm one of those camera operators. You typically see me sitting on a dolly. Somebody's pushing me around. I'm telling them what to do, where to go, this, that, or the other. Occasionally, I'll do handheld, but you do handheld on a movie or a TV show, and your dolly grip puts the camera on your shoulder. You're rolling camera for 2 minutes. Cut, camera comes off, right? Not that much time, not a ton of compression. I have a special rig that I wear that takes it off my shoulder and puts it into my hips instead of my back. But I had this job doing a promo for a show rather than the actual show, and they put me on the BTS behind the scenes camera. So I'm running around nonstop, and they gave me a full cinema camera, not a smaller run and gun camera. So I have 40 to 50 pounds sitting on my shoulder, even with this rig on, and I'm running around for 20 to 40 minutes at a shot, just filming nonstop. And I mean, I felt it. I felt it after an hour, and that was almost a 14-hour day. And there was at one point where it's like I could literally feel, because I have hypermobility, my ligaments are loose, the rib joints on my my lower ribs on my left side, I could feel them popping backwards and out. And it was just like, God damn it. And that's the, I've been foam rolling and medicine balling to try and kind of slowly work them back in, and icing and all that fun stuff. So I discovered through my physical therapy, he's like, ice, not heat. He's like, you want ice.
Yeah, I don't envy that. Well, we've wrapped up 3 hours. Where can everyone find you? I do have the description, but tell everyone where they can find you. And do you have anything coming up on either YouTube, Instagram?
Nothing coming up. You can find me on Instagram at Toy Optics, all one word. Same on YouTube at Toy Optics. Hopefully something soon. But as I said, like I don't want to be beholden to a schedule. I'm not there. Like maybe we'll get there at some point in time, but it's just like it's not gonna happen, but I could get a call tomorrow saying, hey, are you available? And then I could find myself on a show for 6 months and may find a weekend to shoot something, but more often than not, I'll probably just be laid out because working full time on a TV show is taxing mentally and physically. Who is the most famous actor I've worked with? Ooh.
I don't know if that's something you want to add. Something you.
Oh, I don't care. I'm not I'm not gonna like dish dirt on anybody, but I mean,
Okay.
I've worked with Robert De Niro. I've worked with Al Pacino. I've worked with Jon Favreau. I've worked with. I've worked with a lot.
Who is the most famous person you have in your phone? And if you say Travis Moody, we're ending the stream right now.
In my phone? I have somebody, but I'm...
Okay.
I don't. I'm not going to divulge that. But who... I can go on Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot.
Who knows you by name? How about that? Like who would know you by name? Julia Roberts. So like if you saw her like walking down the street, she'd stop and say it.
No, because we were still in the COVID time, so we all had to have masks, so she never saw my face. But if I said, hey, it's Speck, she would remember that. Did you just freeze? I think you froze. No. Oh, are we going? Is this the end of it? We're still live. Got any other questions I can answer while hopefully he unfreezes? Hey, there he is. We got twin punks.
Firefox just shut down.
Oh.
It just shut down everything. And then it gives me a message saying, oh, I'm sorry. We experienced a technical difficulty. Like, what the fuck is that? No, it didn't.
Julia Roberts broke punk.
Yeah. It didn't even freeze. It just, Firefox just shut down. And not just like this window, all the windows.
It
That's
kept the stream going. That's
well, yeah,
cool.
it should have kept. I knew it would keep you in it because it keeps it open. But that was messed up. Like,
well, so to finish your question is, we had masks on. It was still COVID, so she never really saw my face. But if I said, "Hey, it's Speck," she would remember me. I did it was a Stars series, no Showtime, Stars. It was called Gaslit. Her and Sean Penn, and it was about the Watergate. It's kind of a comedic take. It was good. It was a good series. I was really proud of that one. But I'm on IMDb. You can always it has most of my credits, not all of my credits, but it's got the big ones that count. And there's 2 David Specks. The first one was a child actor, so mine has the 2 in parentheticals after it. But I've Picard, Mandalorian, Thor, Fast and Furious 7, What else? Hunters, Gaslit, a bunch of stuff. I've been around.
I was I didn't look that hard, but I was like, I had one of my streaming services on, and Aaron Brockovich came up. Did you bring up Julia Roberts? And I was bored. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I want to watch that movie again, and I couldn't find it. I forget because I didn't. And I'm like, I don't really want to look that hard. I know it's not that hard to find, but like, that was such a good fucking movie. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
seen it.
I saw it. I haven't seen it in years,
Yeah.
but
Just when she talks about you know, how she got all that information, she's like a lot of blowjobs.
it was kind of funny. She's great. I like her a lot. I only had like one kind of conversation with her because she has twins and I have twins, and so I was like, "Hey, you're a twin mom." So we were chatting, and her husband is a director of photography. You know, she met him when he was a camera assistant. You know, I first saw. So when we lived in Germany, my dad would sometimes have these conferences in a town called Garmisch, which, if I remember, it's kind of around the mountains that border Italy. I don't know. I'm an American. Geography is not my strong suit. But we would all go, and there was this movie theater, and they played American movies, not subtitled or dubbed. And my parents would like drop me off for the day, and I would just go watch whatever. So I was watching Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade 100 times, and Gremlins 2, and Pretty Woman opened up. So I went and I saw Pretty Woman. I was 11 or 12. And then when we flew home, moving back to the States, the in-flight movie on Pan Am was Pretty Woman. And so I was like, you know, never would I have thought watching this movie as a 12-year-old that 30 some odd years later I'd actually be working with her and like calling her by her first name.
I mean, that is totally. I mean, that's really trippy. Like when you think about it, especially at that age, because at that age, like, oh my God, they're famous, they're rich. Now, again, we all know not every actor is rich. Just because you're on TV doesn't make you rich. There are very few actors, and you could probably confirm this, that don't have to audition for roles. Most actors audition for roles. Tom Cruise does not audition for a role.
Right.
They say, we want you for this, right? Or if Tom Cruise calls you, you're like, yes, we want you. Or Robert De Niro, you know? But a lot of the people don't realize, especially as a kid, like you just think, you see an athlete, oh my God, they're famous, they're rich. Well, you don't realize they blew through their through all their money there. So but let's leave on this. I'm gonna ask you this. I know most people probably ask you, who's like the worst person you dealt with? Who's the best person that you dealt with? Famous person. Because that you can probably dish and know. Because everyone always wants to know what's bad. Like you never hear about the good tippers. You always hear about awful tippers. Scottie Pippen.
I will tell you this, because when I get put on the spot with this, my brain always goes blank, and then after the fact, I'm like, fuck. I have had more good experiences than bad experiences. And the majority of the bad experiences would usually be like the lower budget non-union movies back before I got onto bigger sets and bigger shows.
Okay.
Where you have these B-list, not even B-list, you have these C and D-list actors who might have either had a quick moment in the limelight, or they're the son of somebody extremely famous, or they were somebody for a little bit and they kind of like fell off of that, and now they're relegated to doing these $1 million movies where they're barely making any money, and they're just bitter because they think that they should be treated like kings or queens. I've had more bad experiences with those actors than with A-list actors. Most A-list actors are super cool and really chill, and they know what they're there for. And unless it's like a really artsy project, which I haven't done too many of those, where everybody's there like making the art and the passion and the whatever, like they know what the assignment is. I'm here to play this character, to do this, to never met him. And to get out of here and go home, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I have worked with, I've had the pleasure and the good fortune to work with a lot of good ones.
No, that's good, because again, it's good to hear that, because you would hope that people that are in more fortunate, and they're in more fortunate positions than many of us, that they treat you well. Because really, everyone should be. Again, it doesn't matter what you do. I don't care if you work at McDonald's; you should be treated like shit.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the. I'll give this as an example. Maybe it'll get. You know what? I'm not even gonna. I won't say the name. I did a non-union thriller, and I was just day playing on it, and the lead protagonist, the villain, was being portrayed by this famous 90s actor from a very popular teen television series, who was married to a very hot commodity actress who kind of fell off the deep end for a while. And the TV series had some numbers in it, just if you guys want to try and guess from there. And I thought that this actor was a tool bag. They did not seem to be enjoying themselves or life, and they were making things more difficult for everybody else.
Did you mention him to me before?
I don't remember. I might have told this story before. So, cut forward probably almost 10 years, and I'm still a camera assistant. I'm not operating yet, but I am the lead second assistant of the camera department for this TV series, and it's an ensemble comedy. And it turns out that this particular actor is the lead for said series. And it turns out that he's actually a really cool guy. I did work on SEAL Team, but we're not going to talk about that lead actor.
Okay, that's who I was wondering, if that's who you were talking about.
He's
Because I told you before, I'm like, I love him, and you're like, I was like, all right.
Listen, I don't have anything good or bad to say. I wasn't on there long enough. I did like 2 episodes and a couple days here and there. But I have a story or two that I'm not going to share. But
I asked for nice
I
stuff.
know. But so this one actor who I thought was a tool from this other project was now on this other show with me, and we, it was a full series, so we were spending a lot of time together. And it turns out that they were actually super cool and super generous, and they would do stuff like, it would be Friday night and we'd be going till 2 a.m, and an In-N-Out food truck would show up, and it would be a producer that would be like, yeah, you can thank so-and-so for that. Like, he wouldn't even come out and just be like, hey, I got this all for you guys. He would just do it and not say anything. And he was a car guy, so I was able to have like a couple conversations with him about that. And my wife and kids came to visit the set one day, and he and the rest of the cast were all super generous to them. And then Christmas, we were filming over Christmas. So we were doing the last episode before shutting down for Christmas break. And the producers, they got like food trucks and stuff, but they didn't do like a big crew gift like some do. And during our lunch hour, he gathered up the rest of the cast. They ran down to Costco. They bought cases of wine, TVs, PlayStations, all sorts of stuff, and raffled them off to the crew at lunch as like a big thank you for Christmas and all that. And so it was just one of those, it's the point of the story is you never know where a human might be, right? Like he might have been in a bad place, or he might have not been enjoying the fact that he had to do this low budget movie and having a completely different experience with him elsewhere, where it's like, oh, you're really cool. They're all just people, right?
Yeah.
There are one or two actor and or actresses that I have come across more than once, and it's just like, okay, you're just a miserable piece of shit. But as I said, more often than not, all really good experiences.
But that's every walk of life, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's just the way that you have to look at it, is like actors are just humans, just like you and I.
Yeah.
Some might be a little more out there than others, right? Like not all might live on planet Earth, but they're still humans. I'm not going to confirm or deny that. I have met Peter Weller. He's cool. I've met him as a director because he's gone on to directing. And
Brian Austin Green was on that show with Freddie Prinze Jr. for like one season, and he was hilarious. Like Brian Austin Green, in my opinion, did such a turnaround from being David Silver on 90210 and being like this little bratty kid. And then I remember, like, I forget what show it was that Freddie Prinze was on. It only lasted like one season, and I thought it was so good.
I don't know what that one was. The one I did with him also only lasted one season, and it was a really funny show. It was called The Wedding Band.
Nope.
And it was about I think it was on TBS. It was on TBS or TNT. It was about a group of friends that all had regular day jobs, but on the weekend they were a wedding band. And it was a funny show, and it was more adult humor. I think we were able to get away with it because we weren't on regular network TV. Yeah. And then every episode we'd film 2 musical numbers, which would be their performances at weddings. And it was really fun because they all learned how to play their own instruments if they didn't already know how. But the numbers would be mashups, right? So it would be like a Bollywood version of I Want to Rock All Night, right? Like they would take one genre of music and then they would smash it with another genre and kind of make it their own thing. And so that was really fun. I was really bummed that didn't last.
Yeah, so the show was called Freddie.
Fair enough.
It lasted one season in 2005. That's so. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go because you probably have to go to the bathroom.
Surprisingly, I don't.
I do. I mean, dude, these things, 3 hours flies by really fast. So.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, and again, I think there's a lot of things that you talked about that people don't know, and I think there's more stuff we could have talked about. So there's always more.
You guys could have skipped hours 1 through 2 where he just rambled on about nonsense.
No, that's on Mondays.
Oh, okay.
But that's actually all 3 hours. But anyway, I want to say thank you very much. I enjoyed it. I love getting to know like people I haven't really got to talk to that much. And I know we've gone back and forth a little bit, but other than the one time on a Toy Kind of Mood, and then when we did Tony and Punk's freestyle, I don't think I've ever talked to you before.
Yeah, no, we just started chatting on Messenger, but
yeah. So
other than that, so yeah, no, it's cool. It's been fun. It's kind of therapeutic.
No, and you know that's what I kind of hope for. with this. I just wanted people to get to know other people in our community that's helped support me, and I think it's best to bring on people that are like support you, whether it be on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, rather than, hey, let me go get this big guy over here or this big YouTuber. Like, I want to bring on people that are actually the ones that have helped me get to where I'm at, and hopefully I can help them, you know, if that's what they want, or just in general. Like, you see someone in the chat and like, oh, fuck, now I know who Speck is. Kind of. He doesn't have enough room for his toys.
Nobody does. I mean,
No.
some lucky people do, but
Yeah, I know I'm not one of them. So
just, you know, they keep
David,
releasing shit.
yeah, thank you very much. I had a great time. And then everyone else, I will see you on Monday. Dave, tell them where they can find you again.
Instagram at Toy Optics, like it says right there under my name. And YouTube, same place. And then on occasion, you'll find me on A Toy Kind of Mood, since we sort of rotate it in and out. So sometimes I'm there giving my opinions on things, and sometimes I'm in the comment section being an ass.
And that is on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Central Time.
Yes.
Well, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes. 7 p.m. Pacific time.
All right. Thank you very much. Everyone have a wonderful night, and we'll see you guys soon.